Chapter 10:13. I'm not a killer, Piero. List's expression was cold. Piero actually thought of him as a killer that could be hired. If it wasn't for the aluminum dragon, he wouldn't even want to get involved in Piero's business. Indeed. In his eyes, Pilov was just an ant that could be squashed to death easily. However, as a dragon knight he had his own pride. Plotting wars and personally plundering resources had already made him lose a lot of his pride. If he assassinated another noble now, his reputation would be ruined. Trees lived by their bark and humans lived by their faces. He could fight to the death with other dragon knight, but he didn't want to kill a normal knight. It was a matter of principle. Piero saw List's attitude and thought, "You're not a killer, but you're a vampire." Of course, on the surface he quickly put on an attitude of fear and trepidation. "Ah, your majesty, please forgive Piero's words. It's just that Pilov is too greedy. He kidnapped my son, Florenza, and wanted to take the aluminum dragon for himself. I can't do anything about it." Pilov is indeed a bit greedy. It's necessary to give him some punishment. List laughed coldly. The more powerful you are, the more resources you can enjoy. As an inheritor of the ancient warriors, you're destined to be eliminated by this era. It's not wise for you to be so unscrupulous. On the surface he was scolding Pilov for not knowing the rules, but in reality he was punishing Piero. To invite a king to participate in a game, he had to pay an equal amount. Piero wasn't stupid. He easily guessed List's intention and asked, "According to your majesty, if I'm willing to pay 8 big elves and 10 lesser elves, as well as provide a clue to the dragon, what will I get in return?" "You can ask Pilov to come out and talk. With the aluminum dragon here, all 3 of us can try." "How?" "Your side will have a spiritual battle first. If you lose, Pilov's side will have a spiritual battle, and then it'll be my turn. If we all lose, we'll have another round. In short, as long as you and Pilov pay a certain amount of elves as a price, I will host the dragon riding for you." Duke Piero thought for a moment before replying, "I can try to get Pilov to come out, but I need to pay a lower price." "Sure." The Duchy of Grey Iron and the Marquis of Boulder's fief were right next to each other, and the Marquis of Boulder's central city was also not far away. In the past, when the grey-mouthed Iron Dragon Aon still belonged to the Grey Iron Duchy, Piero had bullied others many times. Now it was the Marquis of the Boulder's turn to suppress Piero. The Marquis of the Boulder, Pilov, who thought that he had the upper hand, finally agreed to the Grey Iron Duke Piero's request to meet in a small border city. "Duke Piero, I will not return Florenza to you. My son will have to fight the soul battle first. This is the only choice." After Pilov entered the castle, as soon as he sat down, he made his stance clear. "When my sons, Picket and Pilot, fail in the battle of the soul, I will hand them over to Florenza." "Pilov, are you sure you have me?" Duke Piero looked coldly at the bearded, burly man in front of him. The Marquis of the Boulder, as his name suggested, was like a huge rock. This was the unique figure of those who wore bear skin. Even without the help of magic, he could burst out with brute force that could tear tigers and leopards apart. After eating the poisonous mushrooms like the dog urine moss, his magic was even more rampant, and his aura skyrocketed. Pilov laughed loudly. "The glory of the knight does not only favor unite families. My son is also a knight, and he is also favored by the glory of the knight. Your Highness, the aluminum dragon belongs to the Earth Berserker family. Please choose to get used to it. If I ask the Eagle royal family for help, you will not have any chance. Similarly, the Grey Iron family will not have any chance. We are all the same. Who would dare to take the risk of leaking the secret? And if I lose the glory of the aluminum dragon, the family will at most be punished by the royal family. There will not be any loss, but the Grey Iron family will risk the crisis of decline, hee." Pilov seemed to be a boorish man, but in fact he was very careful and he was very clear about the pros and cons. Unfortunately, he miscalculated. Piero once again chose to cooperate with List. It was just that Piero thought he was using the tiger's skin as a flag, but he didn't know that he was driving the tiger to swallow the wolf. No matter what. Just when Pilov was feeling very proud, List, who had already investigated the surrounding hundreds of kilometers and confirmed that there was no Dragon Knight ambush, descended from the sky and walked into the nameless small castle. The fitting frac habit made his figure look incomparably tall and straight. His handsome face no longer had the immaturity of a few years ago, only wisdom and maturity, steadiness and dominance. "Who are you?" Pilov could not help but look at List, who walked in. His pores shrank and goosebumps spread all over his body. He already felt a huge pressure. "Please allow me to introduce you." Piero laughed. "This is the most outstanding legendary figure in the northeast corner of the legendary continent, the king of the Fire Kingdom, the Holy Dragon, Invisible Dragon Knight List Flame King. He will be in charge of the aluminum dragon distribution for us this time. List sat down casually and his eyes slightly sized up Pylov. With the magic eyes, he could see that there was a strong chaos magic in Pylov's body. A single spark was all that was needed for this magic power to cause a violent explosion. It had to be said that the bearskin was a very interesting ancient warrior inheritance. It was a different training system and it was worth in-depth study. Invisible Dragon Knight. Pylov stood up in shock on the spot. The knight retainers he brought with him also crowded around Pylov in panic. They pulled out their knight's long swords and looked at List in fear. The atmosphere was tense to the point where it could explode at any moment. List suddenly released his dragon's might towards everyone and said majestically, "Everyone sit down." What? Pylov could not help but sit down again. He took a deep breath and quickly adjusted his state of mind. He waved his hand to signal his retainers to leave. "I did not receive news from His Majesty List, so I could not personally welcome Your Majesty. Please forgive me, Your Majesty. Don't worry about these trivial matters." List smiled slightly. "Let me reiterate my hosting plan. The White Iron family, the Earth Berserker family, and I will sign the agreement. Duke Piero will pay me 7 greater elves along with a clue to a lesser dragon. I will ensure that Florenza Windchaser Arrow will get the first chance to fight with the aluminum dragon." Why? Pylov wanted to slap the table when he heard this, but he looked at List and put his hand down. "Your Majesty List, this doesn't make sense, right? First come, first served. Of course Florenza can enjoy the first place. Marquis Pylov, you also have the chance to participate. As long as you pay me 5 greater elves, I will allow your son Pi Carter to enjoy the second place. And I will reluctantly put him in third place." Pylov immediately raised his hand to slap the table again, but he held back. "What?" List smiled and said, "With my strength I can completely destroy all of you and then directly take the aluminum dragon. This is the Eagle Kingdom. Even if it is not the Radiant Empire, I can do the same." Marquis Pylov doesn't seem to think so? "Indeed, I can't stop Your Majesty List's powerful strength, but I also have a backup plan. The Eagle royal family will know what is happening here at any time, and then the royal family will intervene, and no one will get the aluminum dragon. That is why I propose that the 3 of us cooperate. You can try the first and second battle of the soul. I only want the third battle of the soul. In fact, this is just to avoid some disturbances. Even if the Eagle King Adonis Moonlight Silver comes in person, I won't be able to ride the dragon. At most, I will kill the aluminum dragon and leave. Killing a dragon without saying a word, as if a dragon was no different from a chicken." If someone else said this, Pylov could slap him in the face, but it was List who spoke, so Pylov could only accept it. After all, this Dragon Knight had once killed 2 Dragon Knight and even fought 5 dragons alone. Such a ferocious reputation could make a 3-year-old stop crying. Chapter 10:14. In the face of List's threat, Pylov, the Marquis of the Boulder, finally backed down. He couldn't guarantee that List wouldn't destroy the Berserker family on a whim. With List's valiant record, even the Eagle royal family couldn't do anything to him, let alone an ancient warrior family. If they dared to question List's arrangements and do something sneaky, the ancient warriors of the Bearskin family would lose their inheritance the next day. As a noble, they must follow the rules, especially the rules set by the dragon-rearing family. "Your Majesty, the Berserker family is willing to pay 5 grand elves in exchange for a second chance at the soul battle. After that, we'll take turns in this order." Wise choice. Now the situation is simple. Everyone hand over the grand elves first, and then we'll come up with a plan to attack the aluminum dragon. Even if this is an underage aluminum dragon, it won't be easy to succeed. List clapped his hands and decided on the cooperation between the 3 families. Soon, the Berserker family released Florenza Wind-Chasing Arrow, and Florenza also shared the secret of the aluminum dragon strategy. The nameless wilderness south of the Solid Land is where the aluminum dragons are active. I once trained my combat aura in that wilderness and accidentally found this young aluminum dragon. According to my speculation, the aluminum dragon is about 50 years old and doesn't have much hostility toward humans, so I deliberately approached it. Solid Earth was the name of the Marquis of the Boulder's fief. The wilderness south was uninhabited, and the aluminum dragon was active here. You already know the aluminum dragon's preferences after attacking it, right? List asked. Knowing the dragon's preferences made it easier to attack it. Florenza wasn't old, but he was already a veteran sword saint and was about to become a full-fledged Sky Knight. It wouldn't take long for him to attack the aluminum dragon, and he was close to the soul battle. Clearly, he knew the aluminum dragon's preferences. Glancing at Liszt, Pylov, and Piero, Florence hesitated for a moment before sighing. The aluminum dragon's favorite is metal silver. As long as you have enough silver coins, you can please the aluminum dragon. I have already built a nest made of silver coins for the aluminum dragon in the wilderness, so it no longer refuses to let me stand on its back. An aluminum dragon actually liked another kind of metal, silver. If the Eagle royal family silver dragon were to be pulled over, who knew if this aluminum dragon would directly kneel before the other party's pomegranate skirt? It was really a bit strange. Mission complete. Reward, aluminum dragon clue. After discussing the specifics of the Battle of Souls, Liszt took the time to check the completed smoke missions and think about new missions. Mission: profit is the easiest thing to blind people's eyes. Sometimes you can't just look at things on the surface. You need to look past the surface to see the conspiracy behind it. A young aluminum dragon active in the wilderness. Who can guarantee that it is an isolated individual or a tool to be used? Please be cautious in the first two battles of the soul. Reward: unknown reward. After reading the introduction of the new mission, Liszt frowned. Obviously, this mission with an unknown reward was a warning from the power of fate. Conspiracy. It seems that the appearance of the aluminum dragon this time is not an unexpected surprise, but someone can plan it. So which force is secretly plotting, the Eagle Kingdom or the Noble Frost Empire? The conspiracy that happened in the Eagle Kingdom also involved a dragon. Obviously, the Eagle royal family could not be ruled out. But according to Liszt's summary of the declining situation of the Eagle Kingdom, it would be difficult for the Eagle royal family to launch another powerful dragon-slaying war. It was not that they were not strong enough, but if they failed, the risk was enough to lead to the destruction of the Eagle Kingdom. Even if they did not perish, they would at least be torn apart. So he quickly thought of the shadow incarnations that were found according to the smoke mission. 4 shadow incarnations were still imprisoned in the dungeon of Flame Island. Behind the shadow incarnations was the malice from the Noble Frost Empire. Previously, one of the shadow incarnations had left, probably to send a message back to the Noble Frost Empire. That great Emperor Jupiter might have already sent new instructions, and it was likely that he was planning this conspiracy. The smoke mission reminded me to be wary of the first 2 Battle of Souls, which means that the conspiracy is likely to be launched during these 2 Battle of Souls. He slowly thought about it. He was not too nervous. The malice of the Noble Frost Empire had long been expected. Now, with the smoke mission reminder, it was completely possible to avoid it, and even plot against the person who arranged the conspiracy. The blood servants have cultivated many new seeds and lurked near the 3 kingdoms and vassal states. They have insight into the movements of the dragons and Dragon Knight at any time, and it is easy to determine the movements of these peak combat forces. So the danger I encounter must be similar to the method that Marquis Bull used to assassinate the Sapphire Dragon. So he asked Achi, if someone wants to use the aluminum dragon to plot against me, what do you think they should do? Achi tilted her head and asked, what is Big Brother's most powerful means? Of course it's spatial travel in cooperation with Bard. You mean, if the other party wants to target me, they will definitely make a fuss about space? Bard is not an adult yet, and his spatial ability has not been fully developed. It is entirely possible to use the power of magic to seal the space, so that Bard cannot freely travel to the world outside the material world, or even enter the material boundary. At that time, Big Brother and Bard will be forced to fight. This was indeed possible, and it was also the best way to target Liszt. Once a conspiracy was launched in his strongest area, it was basically certain that he could be killed for real. When it came to his own safety, he had to pay 120% attention. So is there any way to crack it? Just purify the magic seal. How do you purify it? This requires Bard's cooperation, and Charlie's help will also be needed. Then, Achi will start making magic equipment from now on. When someone seals the space, immediately cast purification magic and unlock the space again. Well then hurry up and make it. By the way, don't just purify it once, it's best to purify it several times. Liszt never fought a battle unprepared. The purification and sealing magic needed to be prepared at least 3 or 4 times before he could safely intervene in this aluminum dragon battle. Just like that. With the support of Duke Piero, Florenza Windchaser began to make the final preparations to attack the aluminum dragon. Pylov watched from the side to prevent Piero from reneging on the agreement between the 3 families. Liszt, on the other hand, returned to the Fire Kingdom first with the Big Elves contributed by the Greysteel family and the Earth Berserker family. Piero paid 7 Big Elves. For the Greysteel family, such a number of Big Elves was enough to hurt them. But for the opportunity to ride the dragon they had to pay. Pilaf paid 5 big elves. For the Earth Berserker family, it was an act of self-mutilation. In fact, the two families could have negotiated peacefully. Each person had one chance to ride the dragon, and there was no need to invite List at all. That way they would not lose big elves. Of course, without List's intervention, the two sides could not really sit down and negotiate peacefully. And this time it might be some schemer behind the scenes, using big elves to attract List. In short, the mantis stalks the cicada, unaware of the oriole behind. I, List, am destined to be the oriole. Holding a bunch of reluctant big elves, List rode the dragon and roamed the blue sky and white clouds. Chapter 10:15. Lao Bai hopes that everyone can support a few monthly votes so that Big Dragon's ranking doesn't drop too much. Thank you very much. Looking for monthly votes for Big Dragon is dead, currently typing. Please wait a moment. After the content is updated, please refresh the page to get the latest update. Chapter 10:16. Oats, barley, apples, tomatoes, peas, white crystal chrysanthemum and ice grass. Of the 7 greater sprites Piero Greyiron had paid for, only the white crystal chrysanthemum greater sprite could grow magic ingredients. Stonewood, tobacco, black tea tree, barley and corn. Of the 5 greater sprites Piero Greyiron had paid for, none of them were magic ingredients and could barely be regarded as grains. With the addition of 12 greater sprites, the number of greater sprites under List's command had doubled. It had to be said that he had barely managed to build up a dragon clan's foundation. At least, the number of greater sprites he had was not much worse than that of dragon clans of ordinary duchies. In this world governed by the knight system, although aristocrats were the ruling order, they were strictly divided into 3, 6, and 9 ranks. Generally, a chevalier could make a living by guarding a sprite worm, a baron could cultivate a small town with several sprite worms, a viscount could manage a small city with a lesser sprite, a count could manage a large city and several small cities with a greater sprite worm. A marquis could manage a large number of greater sprites. A marquis could manage a large number of lesser sprites. An ancient warrior clan like Marquis Monolith Greyiron, or a domain knight like Marquis Wildwave de Maria Rainflowerstone had more than a dozen greater sprites. Back then Marquis Bull even had a dragon spirit. A ducal clan like Piero Greyiron had more than 20 greater sprites and 2 or 3 dragon sprites. A ducal clan like the Red and White Rose clan might have 40 to 50 greater sprites. The royal clans of the major kingdoms might have more than 100 greater sprites and many dragon sprites. There is still a long way to go. I need to accumulate more. Sighing, List had already followed the invisible dragon bard into the world outside the material world with the greater sprites in his arms. The greater sprites all shivered at the sight of the world outside the material world. Sulking, aggrieved, and excited, all of them restrained their temper and hid in List's embrace. Originally, these little creatures which could not be injected with spatial magic power, could not be brought in. However, the invisible dragon bard was growing. When its dragon magic power spread out, it could move the surrounding space to the world outside the material world. Achi, do you think Bard will continue to expand the range of the dragon magic and bring a group of dragons through space if he continues to grow? List comforted the great elves as he conversed with Achi, who was riding Charlie the unicorn and strolling leisurely around Bard. Achi thought for a moment. I'm not sure, but judging from Bard's growth trajectory, it's very likely. It is difficult to estimate how powerful an adult invisible dragon is. It would be wonderful if I could do it. If that was really the case, Bard would be the equivalent of the master spell in World of Warcraft, and his group teleportation would be ridiculously awesome. One could imagine a dragon knight flying in the sky. Suddenly, a group of dragons appeared in front of it, killed the dragon knight, and then retreated. Coming and going without a trace, it could be said to be the nightmare of an ordinary dragon knight. Sensing the scene that List was thinking about, Bard also became excited. He expressed that he would definitely be able to achieve all of this. As long as he had a sufficient supply of the Red Dragon Water Potion, he would be able to grow quickly and help List to conquer the entire legendary continent. Red Dragon Potion is not easy to get. The Rose-White Rose family is not stupid. This friendship will not last long. Bard expressed that he wanted to take advantage of the strong friendship to send more gifts in exchange for the Red Dragon Potion. As long as there was Red Dragon Potion, everything was negotiable. I will try my best. I will send a delegation to the Grand Duchy of Rose for an exchange in the near future. The fact that List had brought back 12 great elves in one trip did not seem to cause too much of a stir in the territory. Even the servants in Firewood Castle were only happy for a while. They had experienced too many surprises when they were around Liszt in the past few years. Even dragons could be brought home like wholesale, let alone great elves. For the Son of Glory, who was known to be favored by the glory of knights, all of this was a common occurrence, which made Liszt a little uncomfortable. If he did not make a big move now, he would not be able to attract attention. Father, these great elves will be taken care of by the development committee. Build a plantation for them as soon as possible. If we plant the seeds now, we can still harvest 1 or 2 crops in autumn. Have you come up with a name for them? There are too many to name. Let's talk about it when the time comes. I have been quite busy recently and may have to leave for a period of time. If there is nothing too difficult to decide, I will leave it to you, Father. I will take care of everything on Flame Island for you. After arranging the construction of the territory, Liszt hurried into a cheese laboratory and set up the purification magic with her. This set of magic was based on the magic circle. With Bard's ability, it could reverse the sealed space and break the barrier of space. Conspiracies were growing in the dark, so he had to prepare carefully. While Liszt was making the purification magic, he was also developing his Phoenix incarnation ability and practicing several powerful spells that Achi had developed for him. Even though his trump cards were powerful, he still seriously set up a backup plan and various escape plans. It was better to be safe than sorry. The Dragon Knight seemed to stand at the peak of power, but there were many types of dragons. The Holy Dragon and the Evil Dragon were all present, and the Weave Dragon was an even more incredible existence. Who knew if there would be a power that could threaten him? Fortunately, the power of fate represented by the Smoke Mission was indeed strong, revealing the conspiracy in advance so that Liszt could plan and deal with it. He and Achi fiddled in the laboratory for a whole week and set up many backup plans. When they felt that the time was right, they were ready to set off for the solid ground to supervise the first spiritual battle of Florunza Windchaser Arrow. Accompanying them were 4 blood servants who were familiar with the Wind Whisper magic platform, each of them carrying the newest model of the magic platform. The task of these 4 blood servants was to monitor Florunza Windchaser Arrow and Skin Carter Earthen Rage to keep track of the two's movements in attacking the aluminum dragon. They were wearing magic equipment personally designed by Achi, and their ability to hide their presence was very strong, especially at night. Even the Domain Knight couldn't detect them. After arriving on the solid ground, the 4 blood servants immediately hid. Achi continued to ride Charlie the Unicorn, hiding in the material boundary. Liszt didn't show up immediately either. He rode the invisible dragon Bard and looked for natural nodes nearby. The entire southern wilderness of the solid land was carefully inspected by him, and he really did find a natural node. The exit was within the living range of the aluminum dragon, a somewhat bare short mountain. He tried to scratch the mountain and found that the short mountain was actually a mine, brass mine. Brass mine was of average value and was mainly used for equipment and copper casting. Unfortunately, this mine was far away in the Eagle Kingdom, and Liszt couldn't mine it. So he just silently remembered this location. Maybe in the future, after the Eagle Kingdom was destroyed, the Fire Kingdom that took over this territory could mine it. The natural node has been found. This way I can greatly shorten the journey. No matter how many conspiracies the Frost Empire has, they can't really calculate against me. A few days after the discovery of this brass natural node, Florunza, under the attack of silver coins, finally got a chance to fight the young aluminum dragon's spiritual battle. Liszt's vigilance also increased to a very careful level. Please remember the original domain name of this book. 9 Heavens Divine Emperor Mobile Version. Chapter 1017. The aluminum dragon's appearance was not shiny silver. On the contrary, it had a grayish-white texture. Slender and soft were the first impressions of the aluminum dragon. However, although the aluminum dragon's face was long and narrow, the lines were very rough, somewhat destroying the overall soft texture. Instead, there was a strange sense of power. The body was currently only about 30 meters long, and the wingspan was also about 30 meters. It was not a large body, but considering that it was only 50 years old, it was not small. Only Liszt, who was hiding in the material boundary, could see the details of the spiritual battle of Florunza Windchaser Arrow. It was not a complicated process. Just ride on it, and then the aluminum dragon paused for a moment. The next moment, it shook its neck and threw Florunza out. Then it roared at him and flew into the blue sky and white clouds without looking back. Obviously, Florunza had failed. Liszt's lips curled into a smile when he saw all this. The truth was just as he had expected. To ride a dragon with Florunza's talent, it was still a little lacking. Achi asked curiously, "Brother, if these people really succeed in riding the dragon, are we going to release the aluminum dragon? Aren't dragons very precious creatures that can't be given up no matter what? List rubbed her hair. If they really succeed in riding the dragon, it's okay. Things like fate, even if you don't fight for it, it will still come to you. If it's not yours, you won't get it even if you fight for it. Let's do what we have to do and let fate decide the rest. Whose side was fate on? Obviously it was on List's side. Florenza had already failed to ride the dragon. The young knight, who was thrown to the ground, looked at the aluminum dragon disappearing into the distance. He lay on the mud and did not get up for a long time. He had been confident that he could ride the dragon successfully, and the aluminum dragon had also expressed its affection for him. He did not expect the outcome to be like this. However, Florenza's blow had not reached the end. When the news of his failure spread, he was greeted by the disappointed and indifferent eyes of Piero Greyiron Duke, and the suppressed gloating of Pile of Earthen Fury. There was also Pie Carter Earth Fury, who kept asking him about the details of the Battle of the Souls. According to the agreement between the three families, the one who failed to ride a dragon was obliged to reveal the process of the Battle of the Souls to the others. In the small castle, List was also holding a teacup, sipping tea as he listened to Florence's story. He stumbled. Florenza reluctantly revealed the reason for its failure in the Battle of the Soul. It turned out that in the Battle of the Soul, the aluminum dragon was in its adult form and could turn into a stream of water. It did not use violence. Instead, it needed Florence to defeat its liquid form and successfully find the Dragon Tooth platform. That's why you can't even find the Dragon Fang platform in a ball of liquid? Piero gnashed his teeth in anger. Don't you remember anything I told you about dragons? Father, you can't understand the power of the aluminum dragon in the Battle of the Soul. Florenza straightened his neck, full of anger in his stomach. Seeing that he could not dig out more information, Pilaf hurriedly left with his son Pie Carter, ready to use the silver coins he had prepared to attack the aluminum dragon and gain favor for the chance of the Battle of the Souls. It was easy to gain favor for a young dragon, especially if it was something it liked. But no matter how simple it was, it had to be done in seconds. Any delay could lead to changes. List was also ready to leave. The conspiracy had not been revealed and obviously, it would not unfold now. But before he walked out of the castle, Florenza Windchaser suddenly chased after him. Your Majesty, Florenza is sorry for taking up your time. Huh? List looked at Florenza curiously, not knowing why the other party was looking for him. Florenza knelt on one knee. Florenza, who failed to ride a dragon, has no reason to stay in the Greyiron Duchy. As an illegitimate child, I have not done anything for the duchy. The Greyiron family has no place for me. I hope to follow your Majesty. He was actually ready to surrender to List, which surprised List. Why do you want to follow me? There is no place for me in the Greyiron Duchy, and the Eagle Kingdom will not like me either. Only the Fire Kingdom is my best choice. Your Majesty's great achievements in the past are all existences that I admire. To be able to follow behind your Majesty is the best path for Florenza. These words were very frank. Whether judging from the relationship or the future, List was a very suitable lord to follow. Although Florenza did not succeed in riding a dragon, he had received the preliminary recognition of the aluminum dragon. At a young age he was about to complete his combat power. Obviously his talent was also very good and he could be recruited as a follower. Get up. I need Duke Piero's permission to follow you. In fact, this is what Father wants me to do. A what? Probably because he is no longer optimistic about the future of the Greyiron Duchy. The aluminum dragon failed to ride a dragon, and this country has almost no way out. After losing the dragon and becoming enemies with the Eagle royal family, my father needs someone to make a reasonable choice for the family. He also has an illegitimate child who has the hope of riding a dragon in the next round, and I hope to continue the family's existence in the Fire Kingdom. Very well, I can accept your following, but from here to the Fire Kingdom you have to go by yourself. You have plenty of time to think on the way. If you regret this choice you can leave halfway. I won't regret it. Florenza stood up and solemnly bowed to List. He had already decided to go to the Fire Kingdom. He wanted to leave this place of shame and disappointment. But what he did not know was that while he was packing, saying goodbye to Duke Piero, and setting out on his own, List had been secretly watching him. It was not until he left the Greyiron Duchy and far away from the wilderness south of the Solid Land that List was sure that the conspiracy had nothing to do with him. If it has nothing to do with Florenza, then it doesn't have much to do with Piero. Otherwise, the conspiracy would have started a long time ago. This means that the person who started the conspiracy, the conspirator of the Noble Frost Empire, should be standing behind the Earth Berserker family. Next, I will continue to send more blood servants to monitor the Earth Berserker family. There was no conspiracy, which made List very disappointed. He did not like to be remembered. If Pi Carter Earth Berserker wanted to conquer the aluminum dragon, it might take a few more months, which meant that he had to guard against a conspiracy for a few more months. Fortunately, there were blood servants monitoring the Earth Berserker family. He did not need to stay on the solid land all the time, so naturally there was no danger. He could develop in the territory with peace of mind. Unfortunately, the smoke mission had to continue to be delayed. After List left here, a few blood servants quietly sneaked into the castle of the Earth Berserker family and carefully worked as servants. Only at night, they quietly turned into bats and inquired around. That night, a blood servant in the form of a bat carefully avoided the magic circle set up by the castle and hung upside down in a secret corner of the conference room. He heard the meeting clearly from beginning to end. At first, it was Pylov and his two sons, Pi Carter and Pilot, who were discussing how to conquer the aluminum dragon. Soon a guest was welcomed in. As soon as they entered the door, Pylov, the Marquis of the Boulder, questioned, "You said that you would make a move when Florence was riding a dragon. Why didn't you make a move? Now that List has left, there's no chance to make a move." "Don't worry, Marquis Pylov. There is a reason not to attack. Although my teacher is powerful, he has to deal with the invisible dragon. He must be cautious because there is only one chance. Isn't this a good time? Florence rode the dragon and List must be watching from the side. Do you think that the Dragon Knight, who can create a new kingdom, will lose his mind and be completely defenseless because of an aluminum dragon? Be patient, let him think that attacking the aluminum dragon is really a happy cooperation. Only in this way the next battle of the mind will he relax and then." Hearing this, the blood servant held his breath and heard the guest say gloomily, "Then it is time to give List a fatal blow." The atmosphere in the conference room seemed to have paused. A moment later, the guest then said, "At that time, the holy dragon invisible dragon will be owned by my lord. And the Earth Berserker family, Pi Carter and Pilot can continue to attack the aluminum dragon. As long as they succeed with the support of my lord, they will establish a new Grand Duchy and join the dragon-raising family. Please remember this book's domain name. 9 Heavens Divine Emperor Mobile Version Website. Chapter 10:18. There is only one chance to kill in one blow. Well, it is indeed a perfect plan, so I am a lot more relieved. Sure enough, the Marquis of the Boulder and the noble Frost Empire have colluded to plot against me. The one wearing the bearskin should be swept into the garbage heap of history. The noble Frost Empire and the Marquis of the Boulder probably could not imagine that their conspiracy had long been seen through by List. After seeing through the conspiracy, List relaxed instead. The preparations had already been done, and now he was waiting for the second battle of the mind to come. At that time he could beat them at their own game, catch all the plotters of the noble Frost Empire in one fell swoop, and then take the opportunity to snatch the underage aluminum dragon. Now for the next few months, it will be fine as usual. List was going to act as usual for the next few months, waiting for the Marquis of the Boulder and Pi Carter, Earth Rage, to have the battle of the mind, and then go to deal with the conspiracy. However, only a month later there was new news from the Blood Servant. Pi Carter and the aluminum dragon hit it off. It only took a month and a few silver coins to win the favor of the aluminum dragon, and he was ready to let Pi Carter have the battle of the mind. This was an unexpected change, and no one thought that Pi Carter and the aluminum dragon would hit it off so well. There were almost signs of it being predetermined. For this reason, List could not wait any longer. "Achi, get ready, let's go to the solid ground, see this battle of the mind and face the next conspiracy." "Well, brother, don't worry, Achi is fully prepared." At that moment, the two went to the solid ground, quietly hiding in the material boundary, peeping at the aluminum dragon and Pi Carter, who was circling around the aluminum dragon from a distance. He even checked the camp of the Earth Berserker family, but he didn't find anything strange. They were all ordinary knights. If there were no smoke mission reminders and no report from the Blood Servant, List might really believe that this was a friendly cooperation. But now he always maintained 120% vigilance, and also let a chief follow closely behind, secretly protecting himself in the material boundary. With a chi's strength of instant super magic, she could block the assassination for him in the first place. Everything seems to be normal, but it is precisely this normal state that exudes abnormalities. Chi, be careful. Don't worry, big brother. I'll protect you. Not just to protect me but also to protect yourself. List smiled and immediately appeared on the invisible dragon. He took the initiative to greet Pylov and draw the snake out of its hole. Marquis Pylov, your son is very outstanding to be able to conquer the aluminum dragon in such a short time. Haha, thank you for your compliment, your majesty. All of this is due to Pi Carter's own efforts, but he can't be compared to you, your majesty. To be able to conquer an aluminum dragon means that the knight's glory is on the Earth Berserker family. Pylov couldn't suppress his excitement. He wanted to stay calm, but he couldn't. Dragon. The dragon that stood at the pinnacle of power in this world. A dragon knight who could control a dragon would be able to establish a kingdom that belonged to his family and become a member of the dragon-raising clan. For this opportunity, the Earth Berserker family was willing to bet everything. Soon, Liszt, Pylov, and Piero were sitting in the same tent again. The gray Iron Duke Piero's face was green, as if his wife had been tormented for 3 days and 3 nights. The aluminum dragon was discovered by his illegitimate son, and he spent a lot of the family's resources to conquer it. Now he was only one step away from losing both the dragon and the wealth. How could he remain calm? Behind him was another illegitimate son, a very young knight. If there was a chance, he would be the next knight to try to ride the dragon. Now this young knight's eyes were also green, and he couldn't wait to eat Pi Carter immediately to stop him from riding the dragon. Pylov, the Marquis of the Boulder, was full of smiles, not caring about Piero's anger. This was a glorious moment for the Earth Berserker family, so why not smile? On the other hand, Liszt's face was calm, as if he didn't care whether Pi Carter could successfully ride the dragon or not. In fact, he was very focused at the moment, and he could transform into a phoenix and escape at any time to avoid the noble Frost Empire's killing scheme. Bone Dragon Winnie formed a faint skull pattern on his face. Once a battle broke out, it would immediately transform into armor to protect Liszt and provide Liszt with a godly weapon, the Bone Dragon Sword. Little Fire Dragon Leo also maintained his vigilance, ready to transform into a majestic fire dragon at any time and fight head-on. Invisible Dragon Bard escaped into the material boundary, constantly vigilant to prevent other dragon knights from sneaking up. A Chi and Unicorn Charlie stood on the back of Invisible Dragon, also ready to attack. Everything was ready except for the East Wind. And this East Wind was actually hidden in the camp. In a tent, 2 people dressed as knight were holding some kind of mirror-like equipment and observing. There was no surface on the mirror, only magic patterns that formed a strange pattern that was still flashing. Advisor, the Archmage called Achilles is in the sky above the camp, and the target is in the tent. Should we make a move now? If we attack now, do you have any chance of winning? I have the confidence to kill Liszt directly, and then use the emerald fruit to stun the invisible dragon, but are you sure you can stop that sea Archmage? Young Archmage, it is said that he has already grasped the water and ice element incarnations, but this is not enough in front of me. Domineering, I admire Advisor's domineering attitude. Then let's start the assassination. Don't you want to wait? Wait until Pi Carter is in the spiritual battle before you start the assassination? If we assassinate now, we won't be fully prepared, and Liszt's attention won't be easily diverted. Perhaps Advisor is good at planning conspiracies, but I'm good at assassinating me. A true assassin who walks in the shadows doesn't need to be fully prepared, he only needs to take the enemy by surprise. The assassin dressed as a knight said as he took off his armor and clothes. He was naked and his body was covered in black veins. The veins were so dense that it looked like he was wearing a layer of silk tights. The next moment, the assassin jumped directly into the shadows in the corner of the tent as if he was jumping into a river, and his body seemed to melt into the shadows. Seeing the assassin disappear, the knight called Advisor also took off his armor and put on a gorgeous golden magic cloak from a box on the side. He took out a magic staff decorated with more than a dozen gems and held it in his hand, activating each gem in turn. Then he glanced at the mirror equipment in his hand, and when the magic patterns on the mirror formed a suitable pattern, a serious expression hung on his slightly old face, and he fiercely inserted the magic staff in his hand into the ground, activating all the gems at once. The next moment, a golden light burst out from the top of the magic staff, radiating like sunlight, instantly illuminating the entire space. In the blink of an eye, this golden light enveloped a distance of more than 100 kilometers. In the sky and on the ground, there was a dazzling golden magic radiance. The sun shines, there is nowhere to escape, the old mage whispered softly. At the same time, the tent where Liszt was located was also penetrated by this incomparably brilliant light, illuminating dim figures on the ground. At this moment, Liszt's heart suddenly jumped, and his pupils rapidly dilated. Immediately after, he saw a distorted human figure jump out of his shadow. This distorted human figure held a ferocious greatsword made of countless broken crystals in his hand, and it pierced through List's chest. The roar of thunder armor seized from the previous generation's light green gem dragon knight, Carl Low Violet, did not play any defensive role. Before he could do anything, the broken crystal greatsword pierced through his heart. Death is like the wind always by my side. The distorted human figure let out a harsh voice, like a mocking laugh, but also like a declaration of death. The next second, this distorted human figure jumped out of List's shadow without looking back. Its gloomy body bent down, and its legs bent, ready to jump toward the invisible dragon that was diving to rescue him. But he did not wait for him to jump. A huge block of ice had already smashed down from the top of his head. He was already prepared and was about to twist his body to avoid it, but at this moment he suddenly felt as if his back was scalded by a red-hot iron block. A flame had unknowingly wrapped around his body, and an indifferent voice came into his ears. "Death is like the wind, always by my side? This line of yours is good, but it belongs to me now." Begging for monthly votes. Chapter 10:19. The distorted figure looked back and saw that List Flames, who had been stabbed in the chest by his sword, had really turned into a ball of flame. The flame hand had already grabbed him. It bound him and made it impossible for him to dodge. The flame seemed to turn into a large bird, but it maintained its human form. One could vaguely see List's blurry face. There was a pair of clear eyes on the face, and the gaze was as cold as his tone, as if he was looking at a dead man. "You." The distorted figure did not have time to be shocked before a huge block of ice smashed towards his head. With a bang, the distorted figure was directly smashed into the ground by the solid ice. It was unknown if he was flattened or not. However, List would not easily believe that an assassin who could jump out of the shadows could be smashed to death so easily. He quickly cancelled the Phoenix incarnation that he had activated at the critical moment. He then contacted Bone Dragon Winnie. In an instant, a set of Bone Dragon armor forcibly shattered the damaged Thunder Roar, re-equipping List. The Bone Dragon sword replaced the Ice Soul Dragon slaying sword as his weapon. His eyes coldly swept across the tent that was still shrouded in golden light. Piero was already dumbfounded, at a loss for what to do with the sudden turn of events. Pilov looked at List in horror as if he was shocked by the assassination, but in reality he was terrified that List was actually unharmed. As for the others, some were panicking. List did not care about these people. To him they were just a group of ants. Right now he needed to find the assassin who could threaten his safety. The assassin who could jump out of the shadows was undoubtedly the shadow incarnation of the noble Frost Empire, and his strength was far beyond the 3 levels of Shallow Shadow, Deep Shadow, and Shadowless. That sneaky and thunderous assassination was definitely unimaginable strength and methods. If this person did not die, he would not be able to eat and sleep in peace. "Do you really think you can hide from my eyes?" List smashed the huge block of ice with his sword, only to see a human-shaped hole under the ice. There was no assassin's corpse. Obviously, the assassin had once again merged into the shadows. However, under the skull-like helmet, List was casting magic eyes, carefully observing every inch of the shadows and sensing every change in magic. In the sky. Wuxia. The invisible dragon's cry was full of anger. Someone had dared to ambush and assassinate its knight in front of it. This was simply a ruthless slap in the face to its proud dragon life. Moreover, it was also extremely concerned about List's safety. In its heart, List's figure was gradually becoming clearer, and it was not far from the success of the spiritual imprint. The golden light sealed the space, making it unable to rush to List's side immediately. It could only spit out dragon's breath to shatter the space around the tent. They worked together with List to seal off the assassin's escape route. The enemy could seal off List, and List could also seal off the enemy. The plan to kill in one strike had failed, and now it was time for List to take the lead. Riding on the unicorn, Achi closely followed the invisible dragon down. The expression on her exquisite and beautiful face was very serious, and her heart was full of remorse. She blamed herself for not being able to cast a spell in time to block the assassin's attack. Even though List had escaped the crisis with the help of the Phoenix incarnation, she still could not forgive herself. She had said that she would protect her brother, but now she had failed to do so. The anger in her heart needed to be vented. After instantaneously casting the high-level ice magic Eternal Ice, she quickly set up a purification magic formation, choosing to disperse the golden light shrouding an area of 100 kilometers. Magic blossomed from her hands, and under the amplification of Charlie the unicorn, countless invisible ripples spread. The ripples rapidly collided with the golden light, producing a seemingly silent yet ear-piercing sound of glass shattering. The golden light only lasted for less than 10 seconds before collapsing bit by bit. The space sealed by the golden light immediately returned to its original state, and the invisible dragon was once again able to pass through the material boundary. At the same time, a considerable commotion came from one of the tents. It was the magic staff inlaid with a dozen gems in the hands of the spellcaster wearing a golden magic cloak. With a loud rumble, the gems shattered into fine powder. This? The middle-aged spellcaster was shocked. Achi's eyes flashed in midair. Found it, the source of the space seal. Charlie, let's go down. Those who dare to harm my brother are not good people, they must all be killed. Although she was a pure siren, she had never been a greenhouse vase. She had lived in the sea since childhood. How could she be soft-hearted when fighting with sea monsters all the time? Snort. The golden spiral horn on Charlie the unicorn's head flashed, and with a leap, he had already rushed in front of the tent. Achi casually fanned the tent away with a gust of wind. After mastering the earth elemental embodiment perfectly, she had been practicing the wind elemental embodiment and had already achieved some small success. The tent was blown away, and a golden light bloomed from the original position of the tent. The middle-aged spellcaster wearing a golden magic cloak reacted in time. This golden light was the magic he had released. But Achi, who was holding the 8 dragons' divine sword in her hand, wearing a gemstone crown on her head, and wearing a magic cloak, only gently waved the divine weapon in her hand, and ice quickly condensed in front of her. Boom. Although the ice was shattered in an instant, the golden light also dissipated. Seeing this, the middle-aged spellcaster snorted coldly. He casually released a seemingly powerful lightning magic and said coldly, "Siren Jr., the vastness of the truth is not something you can understand now. Lightning storm." As his voice fell, boom, a huge storm suddenly rose from his hand, mixed with countless lightning bolts, and attacked Achi. Achi never bothered to communicate with strangers. She just waved the 8 dragons' divine sword again. Countless rocks and soil rose from the ground, like an underground monster opening its mouth, and quickly swallowed the lightning tornado. Then there were a few crisp sounds from the soil bag, but the bag was not torn apart. Then everything became silent. Huh. The middle-aged spellcaster was shocked again. He did not have time to think and was about to release the magic again. Achi was one step ahead. Countless streams of water condensed in the air, directly entangling the middle-aged spellcaster like a chain, and then gently pulled outwards. The middle-aged spellcaster suddenly dislocated his limbs. Of course, it was not known whether the dislocations or the bones were broken. Ah! The middle-aged spellcaster screamed, and then he endured the severe pain. Why is your magic so strong? Achi had no intention of communicating. She was about to instantly release eternal ice to freeze the spellcaster, and then hand him over to List to deal with. The middle-aged spellcaster was not willing to be bound. He opened his mouth and released a new magic. This was a wind magic, and a breath could form a wind blade that could tear everything. However, to the middle-aged spellcaster's surprise, as soon as the wind blade was formed, the eternal ice also condensed. It froze him, and the wind blade he had just spat out in the eternal ice, vivid and lifelike. His body was frozen, but his mind could still function. Through the transparent ice, the middle-aged spellcaster looked at Achi's back as she left, and there was only one thought left in his mind: why is this happening? Begging for monthly votes. Please remember this book's domain name. 9 Heavens Divine Emperor Mobile Version Website. Chapter 1020. Thanks to Brahma and Traveler's Lost Star for their 10,000 coins. After easily freezing a weak magic shooter, Achi did not hesitate to ride the unicorn Charlie to the central tent where List was. The invisible dragon bard had already sealed the space around the tent, and Achi could not get close. She could only reinforce a water wave shield to prevent the assassin from escaping. Big brother will be fine. The Phoenix incarnation ignores physical attacks, and can heal even the most serious injuries in an instant. But she still maintained the concentration to release magic at any time, quietly waiting for news. At this moment, List in the tent did not see the assassin's location through the vision of the magic eye, which made him a little confused. He could clearly feel that the assassin was hiding in someone's shadow, but he could not lock onto the assassin's position. It was really strange. Winnie, switch vision, I want to use the bone dragon vision. Yes, your majesty. After a moment, List's eyes under the helmet had been replaced by a ghostly blue will-o'-the-wisp. His vision also suddenly changed, turning into a strange grayish-white world. In his vision, there was only a gray outline of matter in reality, and only the soul was truly presented in his vision. It floated around like a light bulb, emitting light. "Your Majesty, this has nothing to do with me." Duke Piero stood in the corner and said with a trembling voice. At this moment Liszt gave him a huge pressure. Pylov also hurriedly said, "Your Majesty, I also don't know why the assassin appeared." "Shut up." Liszt glanced over, his cold killing intent was not concealed at all. He had already seen a strange light, it was at Pylov's feet. This white light was very distorted, but vaguely showed a human figure bound in the shadow. It was obviously the assassin. The assassin's special magic concealment method could even deceive the magic eye, but it could not hide his own soul. The next moment, under Pylov's widened eyes, Liszt raised the bone dragon sword and suddenly stabbed at his feet. At this moment, Pylov only felt that Liszt wanted to kill him on the spot, not giving him a chance to explain his participation in the conspiracy, so he immediately chewed the dog urine moss hidden in his mouth. "You devil! For the glory of the great Earth Berserker family, you deserve to die!" he roared. Boom. His body swelled up like a balloon. All of this happened very quickly to others, but to Liszt, it was extremely slow. He did not care what Pylov was thinking at all. The bone dragon sword stabbed straight into Pylov's shadow. The bone dragon could see that the bone dragon sword had accurately stabbed into the assassin's distorted soul. It was only a momentary pause before the assassin's distorted soul flowed to the other side like a stream of water. It was obvious that the bone dragon sword had not locked onto him. The assassin's methods also ignored physical attacks. "Leo, help me." Liszt made a prompt decision. He gave up the bone dragon sword and reached down with both hands to grab the distorted soul. He communicated with Leo, who was ready to attack. The violent fire dragon magic mixed with his supreme magic Do Chi completely poured into the fingertips of his hands. He pounced forward and directly grabbed the distorted soul that was jumping away. Flames appeared in his hands, and the dragon's might was wild and violent. Ah! The distorted soul suddenly showed its figure. It was a strange blurry body that was being bound by the flames. It could not escape and could only let out a sharp scream. Countless fire elemental magic surged into his body, almost instantly dispersing the magic in his body. He could no longer maintain his balance, and the special method he used also collapsed, completely revealing his human body, a pitch-black body full of tattoos. His neck was just grabbed by Liszt. He asked coldly, "Who gave you the courage to assassinate me?" Ugh. The tattooed assassin could not say anything. His body trembled as if he was electrocuted. That was the fire magic burning his internal organs. Clatter. A big sword made of broken crystals fell down. It was the one he used to assassinate Liszt. At this time Pylov, who was busy transforming, finally waved his basin-sized fist and smashed it towards Liszt. "Go to hell." Liszt slowly turned his head. The bone dragon armor automatically extended a small bone dragon claw from his shoulder to meet Pylov's fist. However, Pylov's fist dodged Liszt's unexpected bone dragon claw and smashed towards the assassin in his hand. Kill to silence? The accident did not affect Liszt's movements. He was just in the grass. The bone dragon wings on the back of the bone dragon armor directly enveloped the assassin and blocked Pylov's fist. The seemingly powerful fist smashed onto the bone dragon wings, but it did not hurt or itch. The bone dragon sword, which had already recovered its bone dragon tail, swept horizontally and forcibly smashed Pylov into the ground. It sank deep into the ground, leaving a perfect outline of a human body. Then Liszt lifted his foot and lightly stepped on it. Pylov could not struggle no matter how hard he tried. There was even the sound of bones breaking. No matter how violent a person wearing bare skin was, in front of a knight who had fused with a dragon, he was just a slightly bigger ant. Even though Liszt had fused with an incomplete bone dragon, he could still easily crush the Marquis of the Boulder. Who gave you the courage? Is it Liang Jingru? Mission completed. Reward, Gray Iron family defecting. The crippled assassin was thrown to the ground by Liszt. The orichalcum shackles completely restrained the assassin's magic. The assassin had high magic of the dark attribute. What surprised Liszt was that a shadow incarnation could actually cultivate high magic. The Marquis of the Boulder Pylov was also shackled by the orichalcum shackles and was watched over by Duke Piero. His son Pi Carter was also shackled. In fact, even if they were not shackled, they would not be able to do anything. They had already been beaten half dead by Liszt's iron fists. Moreover, a Chi had already rushed over on her unicorn. All that was left was to release the high-level magic, eternal ice, to freeze them one by one. At this moment, looking at the uneasy expressions of the people in the camp, List was slightly distracted and had already called out the smoke mission. The mission regarding the 2 spiritual battles had been completed successfully, but the reward was the Grey Iron family defecting. This made him feel interesting. However, he did not continue to pay attention to it. He checked the new smoke mission. Quest: as the king of the Fire Kingdom, the conspiracy of the noble Frost Empire against you is undoubtedly a huge provocation. You cannot tolerate it. However, the noble Frost Empire is far away and beyond your reach. Why don't you vent your anger on the perpetrator of the conspiracy? Reward: cultivation manual of the person wearing bear skin. Vent your anger on the conspirators. Are you referring to these few? List looked at the assassin covered with a piece of rag, the Earth Berserker father and son lying unconscious on the ground, and the magic shooter frozen in a block of ice outside. Next, it is indeed time to properly calculate the bill for this assassination. Begging for monthly votes. Chapter 1021. The camp in the wilderness had been taken over by List. At this moment he was staring at Piero and interrogating him. Duke Piero, I think you should give me an explanation. I accepted your invitation to preside over the distribution of the aluminum dragon, but I ended up encountering this long-planned assassination. If it weren't for my strong trump card, I'm afraid I wouldn't have been able to leave here alive today. Your Majesty, please believe me. The assassination has nothing to do with me, the Grey Iron family, and the Grey Iron Duchy. I really wanted to ask you to preside over the distribution of the dragon. All of this must be Pilov's collusion with the assassin, and the Eagle Royal family is adding fuel to the fire. The more Piero spoke, the more nervous he became. It must be so. The Eagle Royal family is behind Pilov, and all of this, including the aluminum dragon, is a conspiracy of the Eagle Royal family. Adonis Moonlight Silver is really insidious. He used me to urgently want to revive the Grey Iron family, and thus led your Majesty here. Piero clearly knew nothing about the Noble Frost Empire, so he didn't know that the assassin was from the Noble Frost Empire. Now that the High Mage and the assassin couldn't speak, and the father and son were unconscious, no one could tell Piero what the truth was. Therefore, after thinking about it, Piero increasingly believed that all of this was supported by the Eagle Royal family. Your Majesty, Adonis must have used me. Please believe me, I, Piero, have never thought of betraying your Majesty. List could not deny this. Piero gritted his teeth. This assassination was not successful, and the Eagle Royal family will definitely react soon. Not only will we not get the aluminum dragon, but the Grey Iron Duchy will also come to an end. Your Majesty, please take in the Grey Iron family. The Grey Iron family is willing to follow you to the Fire Kingdom. This was obviously the so-called reward of the smoke mission. After being frightened by the facts in his head, Piero decisively decided to cut off his arm to survive. He abandoned the Grey Iron Duchy and fled to the Fire Kingdom to seek refuge. I will not leave the aluminum dragon to the Eagle Kingdom. List followed Piero's imagination and announced his sovereignty over the aluminum dragon. I will ride the aluminum dragon and let the Eagle Kingdom suffer a double loss. As for the Grey Iron family, I am willing to believe that you, Piero, did not play a role in the conspiracy. Thank you, Your Majesty. Piero heaved a sigh of relief. List added, but are you sure that the Grey Iron family will be of one mind with you and abandon the Grey Iron Duchy for the Fire Kingdom? Piero was stunned for a moment, then he smiled bitterly. Your Majesty is indeed worried. My prestige in the family is not as high as before, and many knights will be afraid of me going to a new country to develop. However, Piero's tone changed as his expression gradually turned serious. But if we stay, we'll be annexed by Adonis sooner or later. I know this Eagle King. The future of the Grey Iron family has been cut off in the Eagle Kingdom. Only by following Your Majesty can the Grey Iron family be revived in the Fire Kingdom. If you really intend to develop in the Fire Kingdom, I welcome the Grey Iron family to expand in the Fire Kingdom. As long as you are able to bring a large number of knight ranks with you and join the Fire Kingdom, you can even inherit the title of Duke. I can keep my position as a Duke. A Duke without a fief. Under normal circumstances, the title of Duke without a fief was usually given to the children of the royal family of the kingdom, or to marquises with outstanding military exploits. Only a dragon knight could establish a country and be conferred the title of Grand Duke. If the children failed to ride a dragon, they could inherit the title of Duke and continue to manage the duchy. Although the status of a duke without a fief was lower, it was still many times larger than a marquis's fief and could enjoy more resources. Coupled with the Grey Iron family's original heritage, they could still enjoy the treatment of top nobles even though they were no longer in the dragon-raising family sequence. This was the best way to prevent losses. Piero was elated. I'll try my best to rope in more knight ranks to go to the Fire Kingdom, but just as your majesty worried, the Grey Iron Duchy is too far away from the Fire Kingdom. Traveling thousands of miles will scare away most knight ranks. Once the Eagle royal family finds out, it's very likely that they'll pursue you along the way. I can draw a map and let you take a safe route to the border of the southern coast of the Eagle Kingdom and the Yellowstone Kingdom. I've built a new transmission array there that directly connects to the Fire Kingdom. Recruiting the Grey Iron family and the Grey Iron Duchy's knight was just an interlude. List restrained the assassin, the archmage, the pile of father and son, and the others. The next step was to attack the aluminum dragon. If time allowed, he could calmly attack the aluminum dragon with silver coins. But it was hard to say that the Eagle Kingdom was not involved in this assassination. To avoid trouble, he decided to use violent means. Signaling Piero to return to the Grey Iron Duchy and prepare to move his family, he searched for the aluminum dragon in the wilderness. Soon he found the aluminum dragon drinking water in a valley. This 30-meter-long, 30-meter-winged metal dragon also found Liszt and his group. Leo and Bard firmly locked on to the aluminum dragon's position. One on the left and one on the right, they flew unhurriedly toward the valley, putting pressure on the aluminum dragon, but not too much so that it would panic and escape. Leo, Bard, it's up to you, and Achi, asked Charlie to help translate so that the aluminum dragon understands its fate and what choice it should make. Sitting on Bard's back, Liszt said to Achi, who was riding the unicorn. Charlie could listen to good and evil and communicate with many creatures. He could also communicate vaguely with dragons, and he was a very qualified diplomat. Roar! The aluminum dragon's scales stood up, and it let out a sharp, vigilant cry. Its body arched, ready to fly into the sky and escape at any time. Roar! Wuxia. Leo and Bard each let out a majestic dragon roar in response to the aluminum dragon's vigilant roar. With a snort, the golden horn on Charlie's head flashed, and he had already used his mind to communicate with the aluminum dragon. After a moment of communication, on one side there were two powerful dragons eyeing it, and on the other side, Liszt promised to let it lie on the silver mountain and sleep. The young aluminum dragon could not make a decision. But in the end, reason prevailed, and it knew that it would be calm for a while. Through Charlie's translation, it expressed its willingness to let Liszt have a spiritual battle. But if the spiritual battle failed, Liszt had to let it go. Liszt did not hesitate. He was very confident in himself, and he already had a lot of experience in spiritual battles. He also knew how the aluminum dragon's spiritual world fought, so he did not think he would fail. If he really failed, he would let it go as agreed. He could wait for it to leave, then capture it and try to use the enigmatic dragon soul fruit for a second spiritual battle. In short, after persuading it with kind words, and without a dragon-slaying battle, Liszt successfully got the opportunity to have a spiritual battle. Taking a deep breath, he jumped onto the back of the aluminum dragon with a slightly resentful look, and walked step by step toward the exquisite dragon-tooth platform. His feet stepped on the bumpy part and he sat down. In an instant, a wonderful feeling came and he had entered a sparkling silver world. Begging for monthly votes. Please remember this book's domain name. 9 Heavens Divine Emperor Mobile Version. Chapter 1022. I've contacted the editor, but the editor hasn't replied yet. Please wait for a while. How depressing. DeLong is dead, exploding. Currently typing, please wait for a moment. After the content has been updated, please refresh the page to receive the latest update. Chapter 1023. Liszt did not know why an aluminum dragon would like metallic silver so much that even its spiritual world was a world of shiny metallic silver. There were no flowers or trees, only mountains of silver, and a silver-like river flowing from the horizon to Liszt's feet. On the other side of the river, an adult aluminum dragon with cold eyes was staring at Liszt maliciously. In the real world, it was powerless to resist Liszt's oppression, but in the spiritual world, it was completely under its control. Roar. The dragon's roar was undoubtedly an announcement that it would use cruel means to deal with Liszt. This was different from the spiritual battle of Florunza Windchaser Arrow. Florunza did not encounter a battle. It only needed to break the aluminum dragon's liquid form and find the Dragon Fang platform. Obviously, this different treatment of the spiritual battle was completely based on the aluminum dragon's likes and dislikes of the candidate for the spiritual battle. It admired Florunza, so the spiritual battle hovered around the bottom line. It hated List, so the spiritual battle was extremely difficult. But, do you think this can scare me off, aluminum dragon? List held the Ice Soul Dragon slaying sword in his hand, his body wrapped in a faint mist. The mist that represented fate flowed slightly, turning the Ice Soul Dragon slaying sword into a fiery red color. Roar! The aluminum dragon turned its nearly 60-meter-long body, its grayish-white scales like a melting candle. It opened its mouth and spat out a silver-white torrent of metal in response to List's provocation. Break! List held the sword with both hands, unleashed his dragon-fighting aura, and slashed the torrent of metal. The aluminum dragon's metal torrent was different from the iron dragon and copper dragon. It was like a ball of viscous liquid, and after being cut open, it could still extend to wrap around him. It wanted to swallow List completely and make him into a statue. However, this little trick couldn't do anything to List. He gathered his dragon's battle chi and turned it into a ball of flame. It directly exploded around his body, causing the torrent of metal to collapse and splatter in all directions. Aluminum dragon, use whatever methods you have. I want you to completely understand that whether it's the real world or the spiritual world, I am your inescapable nightmare. As List spoke, a pair of wings suddenly extended from his back. They were the wings of the Phoenix Incarnation. With his development of the Phoenix Incarnation, he had already grasped the ability to change parts of the body. Flapping his wings, he rose into the air and looked down at the aluminum dragon that had yet to take off. He didn't know if it was his ability to fly that angered the aluminum dragon, or his bragging that angered it. The aluminum dragon suddenly opened its 60-meter-long wings, and as they flapped, its body began to melt. In the blink of an eye, it melted into liquid form and continuously extended into a pair of dragon wings that covered the sky. The pair of wings continued to rise until they reached the high altitude of the mind world, and then swooped down towards List. It carried the momentum of wind and thunder, as if it wanted to kill List with a single strike. Fancy moves are useless. List's eyes widened and wisps of smoke fused into his body, so the already fiery red Ice Soul Dragon slaying sword burned even hotter, as if it was a weapon belonging to the fire god. A single spark makes a prairie fire. This sword only exists in dreams. Buzz. Boom. The flaming sword met the wind and thunder wings formed by the aluminum dragon and swung heavily. The flames surged for dozens of miles as if they were cutting the world, and slammed into the wind and thunder wings. Clang. Gotcha. Crackle. The wind and thunder wings were split in half on the spot, and at the cut, the liquid aluminum was burned violently by the red flames, emitting dazzling white flames. This was accompanied by a series of tragic cries from the aluminum dragon. Roar! The two wings fell directly to the silver metal ground, and when the white flames were extinguished, the two wings began to melt again, recombining into an aluminum dragon. List did not stop the whole process. He just said coldly, "The mind world is a dream. You can do whatever you want in your dream, but so can I. Because the dream world I have been to is beyond your imagination, and my understanding of the dream world is also beyond your imagination, aluminum dragon." This was the truth. He had indeed participated in the dreams of 5 dragons, including the fire dragon, the invisible dragon, the light green gem dragon, the gray-mouthed iron dragon, and the mountain copper dragon. He had rich experience. Moreover, he had the mystifying dragon's soul fruit, which originated from the emerald dragon, and represented the power of dreams. What was more terrifying was that he also had the hind leg of the emerald dragon. Although the hind leg of the emerald dragon was difficult to study, it more or less allowed him, or a chi, to explore some information and pry into a corner of the power of dreams. If he had to describe it carefully, it was like the protagonist Neo in The Matrix who gained superpowers in The Matrix. Because he already understood that The Matrix was an illusory network world, he could pull out the bullets from the heroine's body with his bare hands and fly in The Matrix. The same was true for List. After prying into a trace of dream power, he could also use the smoke around him to strengthen his strength. This was the biggest trump card. He had confidence in riding a dragon. Roar. The aluminum dragon did not believe it and pounced again. The phoenix wings behind List flapped and he shook his head gently. "Stupid aluminum dragon, becoming my dragon is your unavoidable destiny. Wake up as soon as possible." Puff. The flame sword was waved again, and the huge flame blade cut the aluminum dragon in half. The cut was burning violently. Without waiting for the aluminum dragon to scream, he continued to wave the flame sword and slashed horizontally, cutting the two halves of the aluminum dragon into four. The four halves of the aluminum dragon fell to the ground, and soon fused into an aluminum dragon amidst the screams. It panted and stared at List with a solemn expression. Still not convinced? Roar. Of course, the aluminum dragon was not convinced. Its meaning was accurately conveyed to List. Defeating it would not win the battle of the soul. He had to break its liquid transformation, find the dragon tooth platform and ride on it. Immediately, it turned into a ball of liquid metal and sank into the silver river, becoming inseparable. This is indeed a bit difficult, but it won't stump me. List felt that he was now like Erlang Shen, who was fighting with Sun Wukong in the art of transformation. He had 3 eyes on top of his head, and even if Sun Wukong could change 72 times, he would not be able to escape his eyes. If you hide, don't blame me for holding back my big move. Screech. With a phoenix cry, List had already turned into a divine phoenix made of flames and arrived above the silver river. He flapped his wings and shook off balls of flames. Soon, the entire silver river was shrouded in flames and burned continuously. When the temperature exceeded 660 degrees Celsius, some of the silver suddenly melted into liquid, not metal silver but metal aluminum. The melting point of silver was 962 degrees Celsius, and the melting point of aluminum was 660 degrees Celsius. It only took one change to distinguish between silver and aluminum. Among the 5 elements, fire subdued metal, and List completely restrained the aluminum dragon. The aluminum dragon, which had no choice but to reveal its tracks, could only reluctantly reform into an aluminum dragon. At this time, List had also returned to his human form and landed directly on the back of the aluminum dragon. While the aluminum dragon was struggling, he accurately found the position of the dragon tooth platform and sat down smoothly. This time, between the human and the dragon, they completed a true spiritual connection, and their consciousness and thoughts were connected. List could feel the aluminum dragon's grievance and helplessness at the moment, and the aluminum dragon could also feel List's high spirits at the moment. The emotions blended with each other, and finally turned into a loud roar. It flew toward the glittering silver sky, and in the blink of an eye, it had passed through the dazzling silver light. His vision changed and he returned to the real world. Smelling the familiar smell of the wilderness, there was no longer an adult dragon with a wingspan of 60 meters under his butt, but a young aluminum dragon with a wingspan of 30 meters. On the last day, Lao Bai begged for monthly votes. Thank you very much. Chapter 1024. Seeking monthly tickets for the big dragon is dead. Please wait for a moment. After the content has been updated, please refresh the page to receive the latest update. Chapter 1025. When List landed in the Iron Shell Castle on his newly conquered aluminum dragon, Duke Piero looked at the aluminum dragon with a complicated expression and let out a long sigh. In just 2 days, the aluminum dragon had become List's. Such a terrifying method of subduing a dragon left him deeply moved. The last hope of the Grey Iron Duchy had been extinguished. For the sake of the Grey Iron family's continued glory, he could only choose the path of a follower. Your Majesty, 5 of the 12 marquises of the Grey Iron Duchy have been contacted. 2 of them have decided to follow my successor, Pai Fort, and stay in the Grey Iron Duchy. The other 3 are my direct followers. They have decided to move their families and follow me to the Fire Kingdom. Piero said, but they hope to see your Majesty and hear your Majesty's promise. Only 3 are willing to leave? What about the other 7? List was a bit disappointed. Not many nobles were willing to leave. Those 7 are all marquises with large fiefs. I have already sent word that if they want to leave, they will follow. If they don't want to leave, they can stay. In addition, a group of earls and viscounts have been contacted. Only 1 or 2 out of 10 will follow me urgently. Given time, Piero was confident that he could mobilize a third of the nobles to follow him to the Fire Kingdom. However, he didn't have that much time. To avoid being intercepted by the Eagle Kingdom, he would only stay here for a few days before leaving. In such a short time, many nobles simply couldn't bring their families' resources with them, so they weren't willing to leave easily. If the Eagle royal family doesn't come to stop them, we can let them think it over before leaving. But the Grey Iron Duchy has autonomy. If the nobles are willing to leave, the Eagle royal family won't dare to stop them too much. If they really do, I will stop them. I believe the Eagle royal family won't dare to start another dragon-slaying war. Then I'll mobilize them again. Alright, go ahead. I will temporarily stop the Eagle Kingdom. After all, I promised to protect the Grey Iron Duchy for 20 years. This was an excuse for List to stay here. As long as he didn't force the Grey Iron Duchy to leave, the Eagle royal family wouldn't openly turn against him. At most, they would tacitly divide the Grey Iron Duchy with List. Piero was List's representative, and Pyfort should be the representative of the Eagle Kingdom. Previously, there were only 3 families dividing the dragon, and now there were 2 families dividing the duchy. The Earth-Violent family dared to participate in the assassination plot. This was a provocation to the Holy Dragon Knight. It wouldn't be able to appease List's anger without exterminating the family. The Earth Berserker family dared to participate in the assassination plot, which was a provocation to the king of a country and the Holy Dragon Knight. Not exterminating the family would not be enough to appease List's anger. The Smoke Mission also said that he had to vent his anger on the mastermind behind the plot. He really couldn't take revenge on the mastermind behind it, the great Emperor Jupiter of the Frost Empire. He could only collect some interest and wait for the future to expand before settling the debt with the Frost Empire. Father, why does he need my men to help him plunder the Earth-Violent family? This will make me very passive in the future. How will the Grey Iron Duchy deal with the Eagle royal family? In the Iron Castle, Pyfort argued with Piero. Piero looked at his eldest son and heir as if he was looking at a stranger, because he is the great Holy Dragon Knight. No one can disobey his orders, not even our Grey Iron family. Grey Iron Dragon, Aluminum Dragon. Father, you have made too many mistakes in this matter. The Grey Iron family's glory has declined because of you. I did lose the Grey Iron Dragon, but it was Adonis's fault, not mine. I never wanted to bring the family to destruction, but Adonis has already set his eyes on the Grey Iron family. The Aluminum Dragon was a plot. You shouldn't have trusted Adonis, Pyfort. King Adonis is at least more trustworthy than you, father, to believe someone who stole the family's dragon. The war's fault doesn't lie with List, Adonis, or me. I never felt that List was hateful, because he had enough reason to take revenge on the Grey Iron family who participated in the dragon-slaying war. On the contrary, Adonis should have compensated the Grey Iron family for their losses, but he didn't. This is betrayal of the alliance. I don't agree with father. Forget it, you and I don't need to be so dignified. I won't give up on the Grey Iron family and you won't give up on the Grey Iron family either. From today onwards, you and I are father and son. I will take the surname, Grey Iron, and develop in the Fire Kingdom. Do as you wish. After a moment of silence, Pyfort said coldly, the Grey Iron family disappeared in father's hands, not me. From today onwards, I will take the surname Fallen Iron, and remember this shameful period. Piero Grey Iron waved his hand fiercely, you're on your own. From today onwards, the Earthen Berserker family will vanish into thin air, and this castle will be destroyed by me as a warning to all nobles that if they dare act against the Dragon Knight, they will suffer the wrath of the Dragon Knight. Pylov and his son had both been sentenced to death by List. Once they were interrogated and found out about the conspiracy, as well as the cultivation inheritance of the bearskin wearer, they would be exiled to the land of exile. This was the death penalty for nobles, banished for the sake of their reputation. Charge. On the ground, a large number of knights surged towards the castle, while the knight of the Earthen Berserker family guarded the castle closely. Seeing this, List immediately brandished the broken crystal greatsword in his hand, sending a wave of cold fighting aura straight into the castle. It split open a crack with a loud bang, and who knew how many knights were killed by the fighting aura. Following the crack in the castle, the charging knights pounced on the castle, drowning it in an instant. This sword is really good. The shape is also very unique and domineering. It's very suitable for me to use. Instead of paying attention to the battle below, List was appreciating the greatsword in his hand with relish. This sword was seized from the assassin, and at the same time, there was actually a mystical dragon soul fruit. This surprised him but not at the same time. The emerald dragon's corpse must have been torn apart. If a soul fruit tree could grow on the Soul Island and bear the mystical dragon soul fruit, other places could obviously do the same. This also meant that the royal family of the noble Frost Empire must also have part of the emerald dragon's remains. I don't know if the emerald dragon's corpse can be resurrected. This is a sacred dragon with magical power. Unfortunately, the assassin was still unconscious. The great mage who broke the ice was also unconscious, and Pylov and his son were wailing that they didn't know. For the time being, he couldn't interrogate too much information. Regarding the noble Frost Empire and this conspiracy, he needed to wait for the assassin and the magic shooter to wake up. I'll collect some interest from the Earthen Berserker family first, then I'll deal with this magic shooter and this assassin. Chapter 1026. The Earthen Berserker family had been overwhelmed by the Berserker Knights. After losing Pylov's leadership, only his eldest son, Pavanti Earthen Berserker, was maintaining the castle's operation. Compared to Pylov, whose strength was comparable to a top-level domain knight, Pavanti was at most a complete Sky Knight. The three marquises from the Duchy of Grey Iron were all complete Sky Knights. 3 against 1, Pavanti was defeated. His fiasco was the same as the war presided over by List. The outcome was already doomed. Everyone, young and old, was captured and turned into prisoners. List stood in front of Pavanti, who was shackled by the orichalcum shackles. His bone dragon armor majestically said, "Hand over all the elves' contracts and the wealth of the Earth Berserker family. If you and your 3 brothers commit suicide, I will forgive the Earth Berserker family for trying to kill me." Pavanti did not look at his brothers. He only turned to look at his tearful wife and his 3 sons, who were 10, 8, and 4 years old. He then looked at List with grief and indignation. "I am a noble of the Eagle Kingdom. My father and my brothers tried to assassinate you, but they did not betray the morality of a knight. Winner takes all. Do you really want to play literal games with me?" Hearing this, Pavanti finally said dejectedly, "I understand. I am willing to represent the Earth Berserker family and confess my sins to His Majesty List. I am also willing to hand over all the elves and wealth of my family. Can I see my father before I commit suicide?" "No," List said casually. Pavanti nodded, not asking for anything more. He obediently cut off all the elven contracts and handed them over to List one by one. To List's disappointment, the Earth Berserker family, as an old marquis and inheritor of ancient warriors, should have a dozen or so grand elves. However, apart from the 5 grand elves that had been handed over, the Earth Berserker family only had 6 grand elves left. 2 wheat sprites, 1 iris flower sprite, 1 glutinous rice sprite, 1 ginger sprite and 1 beet sprite. In other words, the entire Earth Berserker family had only managed to save up 11 great sprites over the years. However, considering that Marquis de Maria Rainflower Stone, there weren't many great sprites. These 11 great sprites were quite a lot, but it was a little different from what List felt. Additionally, the Earth Berserker family had 172 lesser sprites and over 800 sprite worms. It's a little less, but it's still a huge supplement for me. I'll be one step closer to the foundation of the dragon-raising clan. Blazing Island is really too big. No matter how many sprites there are, it'll never be too much." List happily packed up the sprites and fixed them on the back of the invisible dragon. After that, it was time to collect the wealth of the Earth Berserker family. Gems, magical metals, crystals, gold coins and other resources were all taken by him. The rest of the fixed assets such as food, copper coins, metals and other resources, were distributed to the knights who were charging forward. The Earth Berserker family was destroyed, vanishing into thin air. List had already torn through space and returned to his territory with a full load of resources. The news of so many sprites and so much wealth left the Blazing Island's aristocrats astonished. They understood that their son of glory incarnation of the king had once again done a big business outside. The Earth Berserker family was destroyed just like that? Marquis Lee William, who had rushed over upon hearing the news, asked in astonishment. "Yes, father. Assassins and arch-wizards need to be strictly monitored. Not a single oversight can be left behind. As for Pylov and his 2 sons, father will personally preside over the interrogation. Be sure to pry their mouths open. I want to know how the noble Frost Empire colluded with these people to plot against me. Rest assured, I will properly entertain the 3 of them. However, you have to be careful. The news of the destruction of the Earth Berserker family is likely to infuriate the Eagle Royal family." "I know. However, I have to protect Piero and the other knight who have sought refuge with me. If the Blazing Kingdom wants to develop, its population is the biggest constraint. Moreover, from the standpoint of this matter, I am the real victim. I believe the Eagle Royal family will not dare to turn against me for the second assassination attempt. Of the 2 assassinations, the first one was a 5-headed dragon and 2 dragon knight, which were killed by List with great force. The second one was a powerful assassin and arch-wizard from the noble Frost Empire. It was a fatal attack jointly arranged by List, but it was still avoided and killed by him. The Eagle Royal family would definitely not dare to act rashly without the preparation of a fatal attack. Therefore, List returned to the Grey Iron Duchy again. With the remaining power of the destruction of the Earth Berserker family, another group of noble knight from the Grey Iron Duchy joined the migration team. They followed the map drawn by Achi herself and headed in the direction of Realgar City. One could imagine. As the Eagle Kingdom could not come up with any countermeasures, more nobles from the Grey Iron Duchy chose to flee to the Blazing Kingdom to develop. Everyone could see that after losing the dragon, the fate of the Grey Iron Duchy was at stake. Now it was a multiple-choice question: to join the Eagle Kingdom or the Blazing Kingdom. The advantage of joining the Eagle Kingdom was that there was no need to migrate, and the family could preserve its wealth to the greatest extent. The disadvantage was that as a vassal of a destroyed country, it would not be easy to fight for glory. The disadvantage of joining the Blazing Kingdom was that they had to migrate, giving up a large amount of wealth and serfs. The advantage was that there were opportunities everywhere in the new kingdom. As long as they had ambition, they could eventually develop and strengthen the family. Your Majesty, from now on, the Grey Iron family will fight at the front lines for your Majesty. After leaving the Iron Castle, Piero found that he only brought a group of followers, a few mistresses and illegitimate children with him. He did not bring a single family member with him. His legal wife decided to stay and live with his son, Pyfort, and continue to guard the Grey Iron Duchy that was destined to fail. Look forward, Duke Piero. When Piero left the Grey Iron Duchy with his knight, thousands of kilometers away, in the Eagle Kingdom's palace, the Iron Dragon Chain Palace. King Adonis Moonlight Silver looked at the information in his hands without any expression on his face. He only calmly narrated to the queen: as expected, Great Emperor Jupiter set his sights on the divine holy dragon, the invisible dragon. However, he thought himself clever and was unwilling to cooperate with me. Instead, he chose that boorish Pilaf. Now, not only did he not get the invisible dragon, he even lost his most important assassin and magic shooter. This is not a good thing, Adonis. Liszt has grown stronger again. He has taken down the aluminum dragon. The queen sighed. I think this is a good thing. I know Great Emperor Jupiter's. He is headstrong, self-opinionated, and extremely vengeful. Just wait, he will not be willing to accept this failure. The next time he comes, he is destined to fight a crazy battle with Liszt, and my chance to benefit from it has come. I hope so. The queen shook her head and asked, how do you think we should deal with the matter of the Earth Berserker family? If Pilaf had not been greedy for the aluminum dragon and reported to me, I would naturally protect the Earth Berserker family. However, he chose to betray me and brought all of this upon himself. Now that Piero is busy running away, I can use the excuse of the Earth Berserker family to swallow the Grey Iron Duchy and make up for the kingdom's losses. Actually, this can't make up for much of the loss. Accumulate strength and wait for the right time. Didn't you and I already foresee this situation? Adonis held the queen's hand and tried to cheer himself up. I have seen the ups and downs of many young heroes. With Liszt's lively personality, he will sooner or later die of his own arrogance if he wants to steal the dragon, even if he has to travel thousands of kilometers. As he spoke, he stood up and smiled as if he was giving pointers. When that time comes, it will be time for me to sweep away my depression and restore the glory of the Eagle Kingdom. Chapter 1027. Thank you so much. Looking for monthly tickets for The Big Dragon, currently typing. Please wait a moment. After the content has been updated, please refresh the page to get the latest update. Chapter 1028. The assassin and the high mage had yet to wake up, but Pilaf and his son had already confessed under torture. According to Pilaf, his family had long been in contact with the Noble Frost Empire. Because there was a trade route between them, the Noble Frost Empire quickly used the news of the aluminum dragon to rope in the Earth Berserker family. I don't know how they know about aluminum dragon, but Shadow Incarnate is a huge organization. They must have accidentally heard about aluminum dragon when they were investigating Piero. Everyone knows that Piero and Liszt are involved. Shouldn't the Shadow Incarnation go to investigate? Therefore, after receiving the news of the aluminum dragon, the people from the Noble Frost Empire began to plot. The assassin is called Louis Shadow. He is the most powerful existence among the Shadow Incarnations. He has already surpassed Shallow Shadow, Deep Shadow, and Shadowless. He has reached the peak of the realm of the Dragon Knight and Magic Shooter. I don't know much about this realm. I only know that Louis calls himself the King of Shadows. Apart from the King of Shadows, Louis Shadow, there was another magic shooter. He was the royal family's chief magic advisor, Laird Truth. I don't know much about Laird Truth either. I only know that he's a veteran magic shooter with unfathomable strength. Moreover, he has the divine weapon of the Noble Frost Empire's royal family, the Light of Imprisonment magic staff. It can seal the void, and no living being can escape from the Light of Imprisonment. Pylov was a tough guy. After suffering all kinds of torture, he only told the whole plot intermittently like squeezing toothpaste. He wasn't familiar with the King of Shadows, Louis Shadow, or the magic shooter, Laird Truth. Instead, he contacted a middleman. This middleman was the trusted Knight of Jupiter the Great. He was in charge of the layout of the entire Eagle Kingdom and the communication with the nobles. Where is the middleman now? Do you really believe he's Emperor Jupiter's confidant? Marquis Oxtail, who was in charge of the interrogation, asked. Pylov sneered, I don't know where he is. He has always been the one looking for us, not us looking for him. Why would I believe him? Don't you think this question is ridiculous? The King of Shadows and the magic shooter are standing in front of me, and you ask me if I believe his identity. Do you think I should believe him? You're so confident that you're planning a conspiracy with them to deal with the Flame King? Haven't you heard of the Flame King's illustrious military exploits? You won't understand the temptation of aluminum dragons for a big family like mine. Besides, the assassination will be carried out by them, not me. If I succeed, I'll be able to join the dragon-rearing clan. If I don't succeed, I'll still be able to enjoy my life. I just didn't expect that when List wanted to kill Louis Shadow, I jumped out. Pylov still regretted his carelessness at that time. List was clearly trying to kill his shadow, but he thought he was trying to kill him. He had no choice but to take action and expose his identity. He still didn't know that List had known about his conspiratorial identity a long time ago. I've said everything I need to say. I've even handed over the cultivation manual for the bearskin wearer. As a captive, I request to pay a ransom in exchange for the freedom of me and my 2 sons. Pylov said. My apologies, Marquis Pylov. The Earth Berserker family has already been destroyed. No one will pay your ransom anymore. Impossible. It's true. Because you assassinated the Flame King, you angered the Flame King. He has already destroyed the Earth Berserker family. Also, I've just received news that the Eagle Royal family has made a move. They've announced that the Earth Berserker family has colluded with Duke Piero of the Iron Duchy and attempted to rebel against the Eagle Kingdom. The royal family has already taken back their fief. What? Pylov's eyes widened in anger. Impossible. I thought it was impossible too, but the Eagle King's courage is indeed extraordinary. When he knew that the aluminum dragon was lost, he immediately joined forces with the Flame King to divide the Iron Duchy and the Earth Berserker family to make up for the loss. Lee William was very emotional. Nobles lived around benefits, but such a blatant exchange of benefits still made the last shred of justice and morality in his mind collapse quickly. He shook his head. He walked out of the sturdy underground prison and returned to the administrative office in Reed City. Soon an assistant came to report. Sir, a Sky Knight who claims to be a follower of the king, Florenza Windchaser Arrow, wants to enter the Flame Kingdom. He wants permission. Florenza Windchaser Arrow? Lee William quickly remembered that List had mentioned that there was a man named Florenza who wanted to follow him because he failed to ride a dragon. However, he wasn't sure if he would come. To be recognized by the aluminum dragon, this man was obviously a talent with the potential to become a dragon knight. Lee William nodded. Let him pass and bring him to the administrative office. I'll take care of him myself. List was used to leaving everything to Lee William. He was very busy and had almost no time to rest. However, sitting in the spacious and bright office, William Lee felt extremely comfortable. The wine of power was always intoxicating and unable to extricate himself. So there will come a day when I, Lee William, will make all the nobles bow before me, he said. The Eagle royal family moved fast. The Iron Duchy is already a thing of the past. Riding on the aluminum dragon, List thought about the news he had just received and felt a little regretful. Only 1/5 of the nobles in the Iron Duchy were mobilized by Piero Greyiron to go to Realgar City. The Eagle Kingdom immediately took action and declared Piero to be a rebel. They also banned the Iron Duchy. At the same time, they announced that all the nobles in the Iron Duchy would be treated equally and that the children of Outstanding Knight would be allowed to participate in the Dragon Knight selection program. As a result, the nobles who were reluctant to move to Eagle Kingdom took advantage of the situation. Only 4 marquises, 17 earls and 38 viscounts left with Piero. However, there were more nobles below the rank of baron. These lesser nobles were willing to give up their already limited wealth and were ready to go to the Fire Kingdom to seek opportunities. They wanted to see if they could become great nobles. Lord Wold Bumblebee was such a dreamy baron. His family had been in the business of beekeeping for generations, and their surname was Bumblebee. Unfortunately, there were very few wars in the Iron Duchy. His family was just a small baron who followed a viscount. The viscount was not outstanding. On the contrary, he was timid and had refused to participate in several wars. Naturally, Wild did not have the chance to go to war. He had wanted to leave this Viscount for a long time. Now was the perfect opportunity. The Duke had personally called for him to go to the Fire Kingdom. The Fire Kingdom. Wild rode on his horse, his heart pounding as he fantasized about the future. A mighty dragon knight who had risen to legendary status in just a few years. Only by following such a king to establish a new country would the knight's hard work be meaningful. However, his family was on tenterhooks. His wife and his unmarried sister sat in the carriage. The two of them felt the jolting of the carriage just like how he was feeling now. How much longer until we reach Realgar City? Wild's sister opened the curtains and looked at the endless primeval forest in the distance. Wild's wife shook her head. I don't know. We've been walking in the forest for a week and still haven't finished the journey. I'm starting to wonder if leaving the Iron Duchy was a mistake. Although the original castle was a bit small, it was quite nice to live in. Do you think we can go back? Definitely not. Wild is now wholeheartedly going to the Fire Kingdom to follow the Dragon Knight. He has placed all his hopes of revitalizing the Bumblebee family in the Fire Kingdom. His sister said doubtfully, such a great person should be worth following. His wife sighed. I also know that His Majesty is very great, but such a great person is too far away from us. The masculine Wind family is just a small noble family. I'm afraid that if we follow His Majesty will not even see Wild Bumblebee's name. Please remember this book's domain name. Godly Emperor of the Nine Heavens mobile version. Chapter 1029. If there were no accidents, List would not know the name Alfred Bumblebee. Now that there were more and more knights following him, it was hard for him to pay attention to a single baron. Piero was in charge of opening the way in the mountains and building a bridge in the water. Apart from riding the dragon and driving away the magical beasts that might invade the migration team, Roland was also thinking about the clues about the subdragon that Piero Greyiron had provided him. This was the content of the previous spiritual battle. The clue about the subdragon that Piero had provided him was about the giant lion Nimia. There was not much information about the giant lion Nimia in the legends. What List knew was that the giant lion Nimia was said to be invulnerable and unkillable. The information Piero possessed also proved this point. 10 years ago, the Greyiron dragon Owen was still called the Grey King. He was the dragon of the Greyiron family that ruled over the Greyiron Duchy. Once, the Grey King went out for a stroll and found a strong lion in the wilderness south of the Greyiron Duchy. The Grey King wanted to hunt the lion for food. However, after fighting with the lion, he actually did not manage to kill it. Of course, the Grey King was not satisfied. After returning to the Greyiron Duchy, he asked Piero to gather magicians to set up a magic formation to hunt the giant lion Nimia. In the end, he still did not kill it. Instead, the giant lion Nimia killed the lion and escaped. I sent people to the Land of Fertility 3 times. All 3 times they failed and lost a lot of resources. In the end, nothing came of it. 2 years ago, I went to the Land of Fertility to hunt and saw the giant lion Nimia from afar. It was still alive and well. I did not see any of its kind. Piero could not catch or kill the giant lion Nimia, but he could not bear to give it up. Thus, he hid the secret and slowly investigated the giant lion Nimia. He was secretly investigating the giant lion Nimia. I found a record. In the era of the Moon Empire, the giant lion Nimia was a social animal. After an indigenous tribe killed the giant lion Nimia, they used its skin to make armor that could contend against magic shooters. Isn't the giant lion Nimia unkillable? There might be a special way to kill the giant lion Nimia. Otherwise, the giant lion Nimia would be overrun, and now there's basically no trace of the giant lion Nimia. Since he had learned from Piero that the giant lion Nimia resided in the southern wilderness, a place called the Land of Fertility, List naturally intended to meet the giant lion Nimia. However, it was not easy to find the giant lion Nimia. Back then, when he was standing on the back of the gray-mouthed iron dragon, Piero had to search for half a month before he could find it. This giant lion, Nimia, would actually hide in a cave to rest, and even the magic eyes could not find it. After clearing his thoughts, List stopped thinking about the great lion Nimia. He had to escort this batch of knights to Realgar City before he could take the time. The straight-line distance from the Duchy of Greyiron to Adamantine City was about 7,000 kilometers. The road was bumpy, and even with the protection of a knight, it would take at least 2 months to reach Adamantine City safely. On the other hand, List's time was extremely precious. He only escorted the migration knight halfway before he turned around and left. He returned to Flame Island. The reason was simple. High Mage Laird Truth had already awakened, and the interrogation could begin. At this time, High Mage Laird had already put on a custom-made prison uniform to restrict his connection with the magic net and prevent him from casting powerful spells to escape. As for the golden magic cloak he was originally wearing, it was only a gorgeous piece of clothing that slightly increased the power of spell casting. Laird Truth. Before List could interrogate him, Laird suddenly looked at List and said word by word, "The High Mage who defeated me that day was Sir Aroyd's Truth?" "Yes, but let's talk about something else first. Who was the mastermind behind this assassination attempt? Isn't it clear who the mastermind is? Apart from Great Emperor Jupiter, there is no one else who can command high mages and the King of Shadows." Laird's face was still pale, but he did not seem tired. "King List, let's not beat around the bush. I can tell you everything I know, but I have a request." "What request?" "I want to impart all the knowledge I've mastered over the years to Sir Aroyd's. I hope she can inherit my research and explore deeper truths." "What kind of request is that? You still want to be a cheese teacher?" "No, I've explored the truth for so many years, but my mastery and understanding of magic are not as good as the young High Mage Siren. It's obvious that I'm not qualified to be her teacher. King List, you don't have to doubt my intentions. Assassinating you is just a transaction. I have no ill intentions towards you. Do you think I'll believe you? Why not? I'm a High Mage. Exploring the truth is my life's mission. I'm just cooperating with Great Emperor Jupiter. He needs me to host magic services for him, and I need him to provide me with research resources. Then he'll use the light of imprisonment in exchange for me assassinating you." The light of imprisonment was the destroyed magic staff. Laird said matter-of-factly, "To me, Great Emperor Jupiter doesn't understand the charm of the truth. Unfortunately, the magic shooters in the legendary continent have long withered, so I can only cooperate with the noble Frost Empire. But it's different now. Sir Aroyd's is a rare magic shooter. She's proven that she can go further than all the other magic shooters." Faced with Laird's words, List didn't know how to respond. He was already prepared to torture this magic shooter, make him understand how stupid it was to assassinate him, and interrogate him for information about the noble Frost Empire. He didn't expect Laird to not play by the rules. He didn't take the assassination seriously and even wanted to cooperate with Chi. "So, you think you can get away with just a few sentences after assassinating me? You want compensation, right? I can't provide you with resources. My mage tower is in the noble Frost Empire, so obviously I have to give it up. But I can use the information I know and my knowledge to exchange for your forgiveness," Laird said. "Also, I can stay in the Fire Kingdom and provide magic services for the kingdom. You only need to provide for my daily research needs." The interrogation didn't go smoothly. Or rather, it went too smoothly. Laird didn't have any intention of resisting. With an attitude of, "I'm ready to sell myself to repay the debt," he urged Link to hurry up and cooperate. This left List with nowhere to vent his anger. He couldn't just slap Laird to death. Plus, the knowledge of a magic shooter was indeed a temptation that List couldn't resist. So, he could only look for Chi and ask if she was willing to cooperate with Laird. Chi said directly, "A magic shooter is indeed worth cooperating with, but he assassinated my brother. Chi doesn't like this kind of person." Without a doubt, Chi supported killing the magic shooter. "My brother doesn't like it either, but he's a magic shooter after all. It'd be a pity to waste his knowledge. Also, a magic shooter's research ability can be of great help to your experiments. Let him stay. Tell Charlie to pay attention to his attitude at all times. If he has any ill intentions, kill him." Just like that. Laird Truth had officially joined the Fire Kingdom, but List hadn't vented his anger yet. So, he set his sights on the King of Shadows, Louis Shadow, who had recovered from his injuries and was about to wake up. "You'll have to bear double my anger for attempting to assassinate me." Chapter 1030. Laird Truth was pardoned, but the price was that he would serve the Fire Kingdom for the rest of his life and offer all the knowledge and information he had. List was not interested in understanding his knowledge of magic, but the information he had, especially when it came to the noble Frost Empire, was worth exploring. The time when the noble Frost Empire was founded was no longer reliable. It was said that it originated from a kingdom 2,000 years ago. Through marriage and other means, it united 3 neighboring kingdoms and formed the noble Frost Federation Empire. In the next 2,000 years, the royal families of the 4 kingdoms merged, and finally, only one royal family was left. There were some differences between the royal family of an empire and a kingdom or a duchy. The main difference was that the children of the emperor needed to be enfeoffed. Apart from the eldest son who would inherit the throne, the other children would be infeft and change their surnames to start their own families. If the eldest son died, these children would have the chance to live in the palace and become the new emperor, but the chance was very rare. Every generation of emperors received the best resources and were on the throne for a long time. They would often use the method of intergenerational inheritance to pass the throne to their grandchildren. In case the grandson died, the son could step forward and continue to train the grandson. The current great emperor had directly inherited the throne from his grandfather and already had a grandson, so the bloodline of the royal family would not be broken. Emperor Jupiter was a dark dragon knight. His son was also a dragon knight, and his grandson was also a dragon knight. The royal family has a secret treasure. It's a tree related to the emerald dragon. It can bear emerald fruits. You should have seized that emerald fruit from Lewis' shadow. It's because of the emerald fruit that every generation of royal family members can ride a dragon as long as their talent is not too bad. Does the noble Frost Empire have a lot of this emerald fruit? I don't know. Even I can't pry into this secret. Right, there's a question I've always wanted to solve. You can ride so many dragons alone. Do you also have the emerald fruit? Laird Truth stared at List with bright eyes. He was curious about all the information related to the legendary emerald dragon. List asked, "Why do you ask?" "When Emperor Jupiter made a deal with me and asked me to assassinate you, he told me that a knight can't ride a second dragon without external help. All three empires possess the emerald fruit, and with the help of the emerald fruit, the twin dragon knight was born." This was an important piece of information. Obviously, the emerald dragon's corpse had been dismembered, and it had been scattered all over the legendary continent, including the Malfa continent. A family that possessed the corpse of an emerald dragon would obviously be able to become a dragon-rearing family that would flourish for a long time. They would not lack enough dragons to make up for it, and only then could they grow into an empire. For example, the Flame family founded by List could develop normally for a few hundred years, and it would be the proper model for the rise of an empire. Ryder added, "Unfortunately, the Holy Dragon has disappeared for thousands of years. None of the three great empires have been able to get their hands on one. You're the only one who has managed to ride an invisible dragon." After getting the news about the invisible dragon, Great Emperor Jupiter summoned me and said that he was determined to get the invisible dragon. Shameless boasting. List was alarmed, but he showed disdain on his face. Ryder shook his head. "I don't know much about the secret forces of the noble Frost Empire, but I know Great Emperor Jupiter very well. Once he wants something, he will pay any price. He won't give up on the invisible dragon in your hands. He will only continue to find opportunities to snatch it away. Then let him come. Even the joint assassination of a magic shooter and the King of Shadows couldn't hurt me. I don't believe that he has any other tricks up his sleeve." List's confidence came from a source. This assassination once again proved that the power of fate favored him, and that all conspiracies and schemes had nowhere to hide. Next, Ryder talked about the strength of the noble Frost Empire. The dragon nest of the noble Frost Empire raised 31 dragons, among which 22 were dragon knights. They were much more powerful than the average kingdom. Fortunately, most of the dragon knights of the noble Frost Empire were used to fight against the unfailing Light Empire. Otherwise, it would have been easy for them to annex the surrounding small countries, and they would have expanded eastward long ago. Ryder then talked about the political structure of the legendary continent. The unfailing Light Empire was recognized as the strongest country, followed by the Blue Dragon Empire, and finally the noble Frost Empire. These three empires often fought, and the structure was similar to a tripartite confrontation. Following them were 11 kingdoms, countless duchies, and 3 major city-states. The free city-states, lost city-states, and mercenary city-states. The city-states were small dragon-rearing families that existed in the form of mercenaries. They were mainly used to fight against the noble Frost Empire, which was the only empire that liked to plunder small countries. Due to the distance and the unexpected decline of the magic civilization, the expansion of the empire became more difficult. Otherwise, there would have been a talented and bold dragon knight who could unify the legendary continent in the past few thousand years. So, what do you think about the destruction of the ancient Moon Empire? I'm not sure, but according to my persistent excavation of ancient ruins for many years, I can deduce that during the golden age of the Moon Empire, there was suddenly a great catastrophe. From then on, the entire magic civilization collapsed overnight, and the Night Knights developed in the ruins. Have you heard of the Malfa continent? You know about the Malfa continent too? Ryder could not help but think highly of List. Yes, there is indeed a Malfa continent that is similar to the legendary continent. In ancient times, there were close contacts between the two continents. The mages of the Malfa continent were unified, and it was called the Sun Empire. What was the end of the Sun Empire? It's hard to say, but my personal deduction is that the Sun Empire collapsed at the same time as the Moon Empire. There was also a civilization in the sea in the past. It was a civilization ruled by mermaids. In some of the ruins that I excavated, there were sea objects and sky ships. Sky ships. List raised his eyebrows. Flying ships that traveled to and from the Devil's Sea. The humans of the Moon Empire and the Sun Empire did not like to take ordinary ships. They always flew in the sky side by side with the dragons. Ryder was very emotional. To every mage, the magic civilization of the ancient times was an ideal country. How much do you know about dragons? Of course, I have done a lot of research on these magical creatures. They are the embodiment of the limit of magic power, and they represent the embodiment of some kind of truth. As far as I know, there should be 36 types of gemstone dragons, 72 types of metal dragons, 8 types of elemental dragons, 5 types of holy dragons, and 3 types of evil dragons. But I do not know the specific types. You know about evil dragons? List's interest was piqued. What do you know about them? Ryder was stunned. So your majesty also knows about evil dragons. That can't be. This is a desolate countryside. Small kingdoms like Eagle, Steel Ridge, and Furnace Castle should not have any news about evil dragons. Yes, it must be Her Excellency Achilles who taught you. I did not expect her to be so knowledgeable at such a young age. These words did not sound very pleasing to List's ears. He was the one who taught Achi, not the other way around. He was the widely recognized scholar of the Fire Kingdom's Guild of Magic. Chapter 1031. He only cursed silently. List still had self-awareness. His half-baked knowledge and the so-called title of erudite were all given face by everyone. Now, Achi was the most knowledgeable person in the Fire Kingdom, especially when it came to magic. List could not understand some of the general principles. They were too profound. This was also the reason why he didn't kill Laird Truth. There were some cutting-edge knowledge that only Laird could comprehend. Kenley Truth and Crazy Truth, the two vice presidents of the Magic Guild, were limited by their level of training. Most of the time they could not keep up with Achi. As for the 7 mermaids, they were all supernatural creatures, but their magic knowledge was not as good as human magicians. Right now, Achi is disgusted with you because you participated in my assassination. So your job is to compile the encyclopedia. When you get used to life in the Fire Kingdom, I will arrange for you to participate in Achi's research. Sure, but when do you plan to build a mage tower for me, your majesty? He had not even started work yet, and he was already asking for treatment. List waved his hand. There's no rush for the mage tower. With my current knowledge of architecture, it's only a matter of time before I build a spectacular building. Once my palace and palace are built, it will be your turn to build the mage tower. He still needed some time to judge Laird's character. It was impossible to completely trust a person after just a few words. Laird Truth could not deny this. Compiling the encyclopedia is indeed a good idea, but I don't have the patience to do it myself. You'll have to help me find a group of great magicians to be my assistants. I'm only willing to provide oral accounts. Also, prepare a laboratory for me. I want to write magic lessons and teach them to His Excellency Achilles Rhodes. That's easy, but there's one more thing we need to talk about. How much do you know about the King of Shadows, Louis Shadow? Louis Shadow is the leader of the Shadow Incarnations, one of Emperor Jupiter's trump cards. I don't know much about his background, but I heard that he successfully assassinated the Dragon Knight of a small country twice. He is the highest level of the Shadow Incarnations, above Shadowless. Shallow Shadow corresponded to the elite Earth Knight. Deep Shadow corresponded to the ordinary Sky Knight. Shadowless corresponded to the perfected Sky Knight. Louis Shadow was the King of Shadows, reaching the level of Dragon Knight and Magic Shooter. Laird suddenly thought of something and added, the reason Louis was able to become the King of Shadows should have something to do with Great Emperor Jupiter's Dark Dragon. This Dark Dragon was inherited from the previous Great Emperor. Great Emperor Jupiter is also nurturing his grandson in hopes that he can inherit the Dark Dragon. The Dark Dragon is related to the Shadow King? Could it be that Shadow Incarnation is a cultivation system similar to the Light Demon Swordsman or Fire Demon Swordsman? Puzzled, List stood and left. He urgently needed to deal with some necessary work, such as training and familiarizing himself with the dragons. Other than dragons that had perfected their soul imprint, the other dragons would become rusty if they did not familiarize themselves with each other. ZT Elf himself, King Dragons, Elf said, Elf King is, Dragon is, to was with spirits. The number of big sprites skyrocketed and List didn't know what to name them. In the end, he followed the custom of the dragon-raising family and didn't even give the big sprites names. You can't take care of the elves? List didn't know what to call them. The 3 dragon elves at home don't have time to bond. Even the most unusual thorn sprite Ella is basically left to fend for herself. Fortunately, Ella is now learning management and working hard to play the role of Firecastle's elven butler. When a wheat sprite worm failed to evolve, I was sad for several days. Now, a few sprite worms die every month, but it's hard to even sigh. List looked at Ella, who was educating the new elf, with a faint sigh at the corner of his mouth. The main reason was that his rise was too wild, and his mentality and strength had not been perfectly coordinated. Whoa, do you understand? Ella finished reprimanding the sprites with her hands on her waist. She was wearing a super small frac abier, which made her look a little nondescript. The elves looked at each other and then dispersed. No one responded to Ella at all. Ella was so angry that she shouted, "Wow!" Elves were never social creatures. Their personalities were relatively independent, so they were much less obedient and easily immersed in their own world. For example, the corn sprite Mickey counted corn kernels every day as a little sprite. He still counted corn kernels every day as a big sprite, striving to count from 1 to 100. When he counted to 100, he might be able to evolve into a dragon elf. Before List could complete a round of dragon training, the King of Shadows, Louis Shadow, who was stared at by his double wrath, had woken up from his coma. He was different from Magister Laird Truth because his internal organs were attacked by List's violent flames and he almost died. Therefore, after waking up, he was still on the verge of death and would faint at any time. Louis Shadow, do you understand your current situation? List personally interrogated the King of Shadows. He was still very curious about the Shadow incarnation. How did you evade my assassination? Louis did not answer but asked instead. He was already out of breath after saying a few words. I found that you are still a little unconscious and do not understand your current situation. No, you are not human, definitely not. I clearly stabbed your heart and felt the sweet sound of your heart bursting. Ridiculous. From the beginning, Louis had put on a posture of refusing to cooperate. No matter how List interrogated him, he just repeatedly said, List is not human, you are already dead, I will not fail the assassination, and so on. It was clear that he would not cooperate. This made List very angry. It was no longer double wrath but triple wrath. However, Louis could not be beaten now. His body was too weak and could be beaten to death at any time. Therefore, List forced himself to calm down, and then a flash of inspiration flashed in his mind. Louis is so uncooperative. If he is not unparalleled in his loyalty, then he does not dare to speak nonsense. Combined with what Laird Truth had said before, that the King of Shadows might be related to the Dark Dragon, this made List even more certain that Louis was a servant of the Dark Dragon. Unlike Paris, who could train independently as a light magic swordsman, Louis might not be able to escape the control of the Dark Dragon. You do not want to speak? Since you want to waste time with me, I will allow you to do so. List stood up and left the dungeon. He ordered the magician with healing abilities, heal his body as soon as possible. He then handed the interrogation to the person in charge of the dungeon. When his body can take it, torture him every day. He does not need to speak. Just make sure he does not die. Your Majesty, please rest assured. I may not be good at interrogating, but I am very good at torturing prisoners. This person in charge of the dungeon was the Earl Sky Knight. He had volunteered to manage the dungeon so that he could torture mortals. One could say that he was a pervert. After sending List off, the person in charge came to the cell with a smile and stared at Louis Ng with an indescribable gaze, sending shivers down his spine. Then he cackled, "You have to get well soon." Chapter 1032. In the end, they were unable to pry open Louis Shadow's mouth. The tortured King of Shadows never revealed any information about the Frost Empire or the Shadow Incarnation. This was the most strong-willed person List had ever seen. Hence, he could only let the prison guards torture the King of Shadows, Louis Shadow, until he was half dead. He then tried to invite Laird Truth to see if he could use soul magic to search Louis' memories. Unfortunately, there was no such magic. Even a magic shooter who had lived for many years could not do this. In the end, Louis Shadow's soul collapsed and his body decomposed, returning to the basic material elements between heaven and earth. At the same time, the smoke mission was finally completed. Mission completed. Reward: the Bearskin Man's Cultivation Manual. To be honest, this mission puzzled List. According to the mission reward, when Pylov and his son confessed a month ago, the Bearskin Man's Cultivation Manual was already in his hands. Even if the mission was not completed, it should have been changed. However, it had been delayed until now. He had to deal with Pylov and his son, Magic Shooter Laird Truth, and the King of Shadows Lewis Shadow. Only then did he receive the mission reward. Why is this happening? Did something happen to the smoke mission? Or did the power of fate deviate due to excessive consumption? This question did not bother him for long, because the new mission content had vaguely explained what had happened to the smoke mission. Quest: 202 Choices of Fate. You have been guided and predicted time and time again. You have grown from a small feudal lord in the countryside to the ruler of a country. In the time that the Fire Kingdom is about to be established, perhaps it is time for you to consider some more profound questions. Please reach the barrier. Reward: Fate's Favor. Fate's Favor. It seems that the smoke mission is changing. List frowned and thought, is this change good or bad? According to the content of the reward, it should be a good change. Then what was I before? What is my relationship with fate? Or is the power of fate that I got before just a trial version, and now it's giving me the official version? Fate's Favor was obviously not just a title. It was more like a higher level of control over the power of fate. According to his understanding, he had been making choices and changing fate over the past few years, thus strengthening the power of fate and gradually forming the Fate's Favor. If the smoke dragon's power was left on him after its death, then now this power had taken root and was even ready to start breeding a new smoke dragon. Is that so? For the time being, List could not be sure. He could only wait for the completion of this quest and receive the blessing of fate before he could understand it. So, what I need to do now is to keep training hard and then touch the rampart. The rampart is the realm above the Dragon Knight that Achi mentioned. Above, the Dragon Knight was breaking through the barrier and becoming a barrier knight. Currently, the only clue to breaking the barrier was the slumbering Weave Dragon. List had already seen the Weave Dragon twice. The first was the experiment of tearing apart a natural node, allowing the formless dragon bard to temporarily enter adulthood, allowing him to spy on the Weave Dragon's terrifying form. The second time was when the Scepter of Time activated its ability to reflect time, allowing him to see a possible scene in the future. Within it was a pair of terrifying eyes. He did not know why, but he was sure that they were the eyes of the Weave Dragon. It was probably because in his knowledge only the Weave Dragon could have such eyes. The barrier is just a concept for now. Even Achi hasn't figured it out yet, so how am I supposed to touch it? Don't tell me I have to get Achi to help the formless dragon bard enter adulthood again, and then secretly spy on the Weave Dragon to discover information about the barrier? Indeed, the Weave Dragon was a very good observation material. However, the Weave Dragon's powerful strength traversed the boundaries of the material world. If it were to be alarmed by List's spying, wouldn't something terrible happen? With the Weave Dragon's strength, it shouldn't be difficult for it to trample me to death, right? List rarely felt guilty. Recently, he had become so arrogant that he did not even care about the Empire. However, he still had a deep fear of the Weave Dragon, and it was this fear that prevented him from exploding. This was because he understood that even the Holy Dragon Knight was not invincible. There were still many existences that could harm him. Not to mention the Weave Dragon, there was still the Cursed Dragon. That inconceivable power of corruption was not something he could resist. Along with the Cursed Dragon, there was also the Silent Dragon and the Shadow Dragon. They were all unknown powerful existences, and their strength was definitely not weaker than the Holy Dragon. Even if these dragons did not cause trouble for him for no reason, he could not be too arrogant. Although the Frost Empire's assassination attempt had been broken, the Shadow King's elusive assassination methods still made him vigilant. In this magical world, even the Dragon Knight was not safe. It's better to keep a low profile and focus on developing the Fire Kingdom. I'll ride a few more dragons. I wonder if I can ride the Light Dragon from Maple Mountain in the Grand Duchy of Maple Leaf. I have a feeling that once light attribute magic is developed, it will be able to restrain assassins like the Shadow Incarnation. What left a deep impression on him was Laird Truth's ability to seal space with the help of the Light of Imprisonment staff. That was a method of using light attribute magic to the extreme. This type of light could penetrate all space and see through everything. If only he had the Light Dragon by his side. The Shadow King would not have a chance to get close at all. I have 2 Dragon Soul Fruits now. When I thoroughly study the emerald dragon's hind leg, I should be able to continue to cultivate the soul fruit tree and provide an endless supply of dragon's soul fruits. I can use one on the light dragon. In fact, there was still news about several elemental dragons. Their general range of activities was already known, but there was not much value in developing them for the time being. For example, the wind dragon, ice dragon, and earth dragon, there was not much point in developing them. Even the little water dragon in List's body was not very useful. These elemental dragons belonged to the evil dragon sequence. They did not produce and consumed a lot of resources. List could not raise too many of them. Developing the light dragon was also to protect his own safety. As if speaking of the devil, List just remembered that the little water dragon was still in his body. On the first day of August, the little water dragon unexpectedly called out to him. Yo! It had stayed in List's kidneys long enough. Now it wanted to walk out of his body and see the outside world. In an open area, List waited for the little water dragon to come out. A moment later, the water attribute dragon supreme demon spewed out of his body and turned into a wave floating in the air. The wave quickly exploded into a downpour, and when the raindrops fell to the ground, a light blue little dragon was flapping its wings and looking at List. It was 10 meters long and had a wingspan of 10 meters. It had a slim figure and beautiful scales. Every part of it showed a sense of beauty, including its unusually beautiful dragon head. However, the evil color in its eyes was comparable to Leo's. Yo! It glanced at List, flapped its wings and charged into the sky. When List's eyes were about to lose sight of it, it swooped down at high speed. It tossed back and forth very satisfied. Only when it was tired did it land in front of List again. It opened its mouth and let out, yo, yo, sounds. This was to ask List for food. Chapter 1033. Water, will you let me ride you? List tried to ride on the back of the little water dragon, but all he got was a fierce stare from the little water dragon. Even though List had enjoyed so many magical feasts in List's body, it still refused to be ridden by List. Yo-ho! It let out a slightly childish cry to express its determination. You really have the temperament of an evil dragon, Water. You are as resistant as Leo was back then. But unfortunately, when Leo met me, I was just a sky knight. And now, I am a powerful dragon knight and I have the phoenix incarnation. List looked at the little water dragon and shook his head to express his regret. Walter was the name he came up with for the little water dragon. In English, water was water. List was too lazy to waste his brain cells. At the moment the little water dragon was born, he announced its name. Whether it accepted it or not, Walter would be with it for the rest of its life. Yo-ho! Upon hearing the name Leo, Walter's neck shrank, but it quickly raised its head and continued to express its determination. This was an elemental dragon. All elemental dragons were listed as evil dragons because of their personalities. Although the gem dragon and the metal dragon looked down on humans, their personalities were still considered peaceful. As long as a human was recognized, they would have a chance to have a spiritual battle. However, this was not the case for the elemental dragon. The negative emotions in its heart were constantly growing, and there was no way it could be reformed or recognized. So no matter what, you still have to speak with your strength. Water, I don't care about your current strength. List took out a magic potion and stuffed it into the little water dragon. The little water dragon happily swallowed the potion. What greeted it was List, who had already gathered his dragon combat energy and quickly entered a battle stance. He could win the aluminum dragon's spiritual battle without relying on the dragon's soul fruit. He was no longer afraid of the spiritual battle, so he didn't need to use the dragon's soul fruit. After all, he was always shrouded in the power of fate, which originated from the smoke dragon. The emerald dragon, the source of the dragon's soul fruit, was also a holy dragon. Ha! Squatting down, Zhang Xian soared into the sky. He executed half of the phoenix incarnation and materialized a pair of wings on his back. It went straight for the little water dragon, Walter. Its speed was so fast that it could be said to be instantaneous. It wasn't something a newborn water dragon could compare to. He was about to reach its back. The little water dragon suddenly twisted its body, its eyes filled with an evil light. It opened its mouth and spat out a pale blue stream of dragon breath. Compared to Leo's high-temperature flame dragon breath, its dragon breath looked like a water gun. However, in the next moment, List realized the miraculous effect of the water dragon's dragon breath. It didn't disperse. Instead, it condensed into water snakes that attacked List. Insignificant skill. List casually pulled out the crystal blade fragment. Instantly, countless flames burst out from the blade, ruthlessly smashing the water snakes one by one. The broken crystal blade was a weapon obtained from the King of Shadows. The result of the Book of Knowledge's appraisal was elven blood, chromium dragon bone, crystal, magic piercing. According to the description as well as his and Achi's research, the main body of the crystal blade fragment was a piece of dragon bone from a chromium dragon. It was soaked in elven blood, most likely from a big elf. In addition, a large number of crystals were used as decoration. Through the special Iron Knight technique, the crystals and the chromium dragon bone were integrated into one, making it indestructible. To create such a big sword that looked like it was pieced together by many broken crystals. Its nature was magic piercing. It had a very strong piercing effect on magic, especially defensive magic. For example, a magician's water wave shield or a knight's magic equipment were all within the range of magic piercing. The King of Shadows must have relied on this weapon to successfully assassinate the two Dragon Knight. After all, under the powerful magic piercing effect, even List couldn't defend against it. If he couldn't transform into a phoenix, his heart would have been pierced and he would have died. Now that it had become List's weapon, it was given the name Crystal Blade Fragment. As soon as it was used, it showed a strong effect. The water snake formed by little water dragon Wout's dragon breath couldn't resist the broken crystal blade. After defeating Walter's attack with one move, List took the opportunity to rush to Walter's back. He found a spot on the Dragon Fang platform and was about to sit down. Of course, Walter was unwilling. It twisted its body and flapped its wings wildly. Its tail was like a whip as it lashed at List. The wind howled. List had to dodge the tail whip. Roar! Walter's attack succeeded. It immediately flapped its wings and fled. However, it had just been born and was too weak. List flapped his phoenix wings effortlessly and caught up with it in a flash. After defeating its dragon breath again, he finally took the opportunity to sit on the Dragon Fang platform. I'm so strong now. Young dragons are no different from normal World of Warcraft in front of me. As he sat down, he lamented. His vision was flooded by an endless ocean. He had arrived in a world of water. This was undoubtedly the spiritual world of Walter. Roar! A thunderous roar jolted List out of his thoughts. He found that the little water dragon Walter had turned into a huge and ferocious adult water dragon. It was no longer the beautiful and delicate appearance it had when it was young. Instead, it was bloated, wrinkled, and thorny. After losing its beauty, its strength had greatly increased. It stared at List wantonly, opened its mouth, and sneered silently. Through the faint spiritual connection, List could understand what Walter was saying. It was telling List that the tables had turned. It was now its turn to be the banker. The last dragon that thought so was a 50-year-old aluminum dragon. Do you know what it's doing now? It's working for me, escorting a group of knights migrating to the Fire Kingdom. List stood in the water without a hint of discomfort. The spiritual world was very strange. It was a world that involved both reality and illusion. It was a dragon's mental space. Dragons were the most powerful existence in the spiritual world. Humans, on the other hand, were at an absolute disadvantage in spiritual battles. However, List was not included in this. The trump cards he had in reality were directly reflected in the spiritual world. The fog of fate that shrouded his body, the phoenix transformation that he could use at any time, and the weapons in his hands could all be reflected in the spiritual world. Now, in a world of water, he had another trump card, the mermaid's heart contract, which allowed him to swim freely in the water. So, he held the crystal breaker blade with both hands and looked at the approaching water dragon without fear. In the spiritual world, there is no dragon knight stronger than me. Walter was confused when it saw List's smooth posture. It knew that humans could not survive in the water. That was why it was invincible in the spiritual world. It did not expect to meet a human who could breathe freely in the water. The doubt only lasted for a moment before it discarded the thought. Its eyes flashed with an evil glint as it pounced at List. Although it was born from List's body, that did not stop it from ruthlessly defeating him. After all, how could an ant ride on the noble body of a water dragon? Chapter 1034. Clang. The sound of the sword moving in the water was very pleasing to the ear. Although the shape of the broken crystal blade was unique, it had a very rhythmic arrangement and structure. When it was swung in the air, it could roll up air currents silently, and when it was swung in the water, it could make a pleasant friction sound. With a slash of the sword, the super demonic dragon combat energy of the fire element shone brightly even in the water. It was like a huge flaming knife that slammed into the water dragon, Walter. There was a splashing sound. The scales on Walter's body were instantly split open by the super demonic dragon combat energy, leaving a charred wound. You were. At the same time that Walter was angry, he was also terrified. He never thought that List would be able to hurt him in such an environment. Moreover, it seemed that List's strength had not declined. Instead, it had skyrocketed, becoming stronger and more ferocious than in reality. I've said it before, with your young IQ, you won't understand my strength. Walter stopped struggling pointlessly. Holding the broken crystal blade, the smoke turned into a cloak that rippled behind him. List said calmly, I nurtured you from the wreckage, and this is the bond between us that can never be broken. Walter's dragon eyes emitted a faint blue light, and he rushed over again, accompanied by a powerful dragon breath. These dragon breaths instantly turned into countless giant sea snakes, entangling List. Compared to the dragon breath in reality, its current dragon breath could be said to be powerful. The countless water snakes danced, and the scene alone was enough to make one's scalp tingle. However, under the smoke-enhanced broken crystal blade, no matter how strong the giant snakes were, they would just be cannon fodder. The flames turned into a sea of fire, quickly burning and evaporating every giant dragon breath snake. They spun and jumped, stirring up a fire tornado in the sea, heading straight for the water dragon, Walter. The battle was hardy. In the end, with his powerful strength, List killed the water dragon. The broken crystal blade was stained with the super demonic dragon's blood, and he announced the victory of this spiritual battle. He took the spiritual battle seriously without the help of the mystical dragon's soul fruit. This was the second time he had won openly, and it was against an elemental dragon, an evil dragon's spiritual world. The next moment, the bubbles in front of him dissipated, and a brand new water dragon was floating in front of him. It lowered its head and nudged List, indicating for List to ride on its dragon fang platform. As long as he defeated the dragon in the spiritual battle, it would be equivalent to registering his marriage. List put away the shattered crystal blade, smiled slightly, and leaped onto the dragon fang platform. Then he instantly completed the spirit as one link and rode the water dragon up from the water. After flying for an unknown period of time, he finally leaped out of the water, creating countless splashes as he flew straight up. The next moment, his vision changed. He was riding on the young water dragon, Wouter, and was flying crookedly in the sky. His vision was not new, and it was similar to a human's vision. Ouch! Walter let out an angry roar. Although it had accepted its fate, it was not satisfied. Don't be impatient. After a while, you will understand how lucky you are to follow me. List touched the scales on its neck. Everything was over. The dragon nest of the small water dragon, Walter, was temporarily arranged in the only sea city of the Fire Kingdom, a mermaid city. It was located near the mouth of the Whirlpool River not far from Estuary City. It was the settlement of the clownfish race and the resting place of the mermaids. It would be opened up into an underwater breeding garden. Most of the elves searched by the mermaids were arranged near Mermaid City. The original marine breeding industry around Black Horse Island was also gradually moving here. For example, the artificial breeding of black giant clams, pink conches and golden clams had been completely handed over to the clownfish race. Kelp, giant algae and other marine plants were also cultivated here on a large scale. The giant algae spirit, Parker, had moved from the giant algae forest of Black Horse Island and owned a top-notch luxury insect house in Mermaid City. The handsome Parker likes life here. It would be better if these ugly toadfish could stay away from me. At this time, Parker was lying on a giant algae leaf, looking at the ugly fish swimming around harvesting giant algae. From time to time he would take a little jade powder from his body and put it in his mouth. Suddenly, he looked at the distant sea. Well, the equally handsome List is here. He hasn't come to see me for a long time. I don't know which fairy has bewitched him. Only the handsome Parker has always loved me. No one in this world will be really good to you except yourself. While muttering to himself, List had rushed over on the small water dragon, Walter. The water dragon existed in a very special way. Its body was like a layer of air attached to it, completely isolated from the sea. He couldn't help but think of the colorful whale Rose he left on Black Horse Island. Rose had a magic called colorful breathing membrane which was also amazing. List, who was riding Walter, also had a layer of air attached to his body and breathed freely. Moreover, Walter's movements in the water were more agile and faster than when he was flying in the sky. Even the pressure of the deep sea had no effect on him. However, this was to be expected. After all, if mermaids could swim in the sea, How could an even more magical water dragon not be able to? Also, the water dragon's vision was not affected at all in the dark deep sea. It could see a special light to distinguish the underwater world. This was something mermaids could not do. Once it merged with the magic eye, there was no telling what kind of magical changes would happen. Walter stopped at the edge of the new kelp forest that had not yet fully grown. At this time, Parker, who was called by List, had already slowly swam over. He saw Walter. Such a water dragon gave him a very strange shock. In fact, he had seen dragons before. List had let him feel several dragons. However, Parker had no feelings for these dragons. He even felt a little disgusted. He hated the arrogant temperament of dragons. Only I, Parker, am the most handsome. Dragons can't compare at all. But at this moment, Parker realized that he had fallen in love with the little water dragon Walter the first time he laid eyes on it. Oh my God, List, what did you bring? It's so perfect. Handsome Parker likes it. Parker involuntarily flew over and kept circling around the little water dragon Walter. Walter blew a bubble at Parker, trying to get rid of the sharp-toothed little thing like he was trying to get rid of a fly. Parker was blown a few times, but he quickly swam over and flew up and down. List, I like it. Handsome Parker likes it. I can feel that you like it, Parker. In fact, I brought the little water dragon Walter here to see if you like it. List laughed. This was also his favorite moment. Parker liked Walter, which meant that it was finally on the verge of evolution. Great elves only liked dragons that were compatible with them. Only such dragons could they evolve. Luckily, Parker ran into Walter at that moment. From now on, Fish City will be Walter's dragon nest. Parker, you must get along well with Walter. No one is allowed to bully the other. Handsome Parker will take good care of this little cutie. Don't worry, List. Parker patted his little chest and shouted. What he said made List's face darken. Don't worry, go. The little water dragon, Wouter, was even more irritated and let out a roar. It was very disgusted with this flea-like little thing. I am a noble dragon, damn flea. Please remember this book's original domain name. 9 Heavens Godly Emperor mobile version website. Chapter 1035. Wouter was not satisfied, but since List had already made up his mind and gave him a batch of potions as a reward, he could only accept the fact that he had to keep Parker, the little flea, company. Little cutie, I'll take good care of you. Handsome Parker will like you as much as he likes himself. The giant seaweed elf grinned with a mouth full of sharp teeth. Yo-ho! Wouter glared and tried to intimidate Parker. If it weren't for the elven contract, Parker would be a handsome great elf that even List wouldn't think much of. How would he care about Walter's glare? He happily flew to Wouter's body and caressed his scales, feeling the aura of a water dragon. What a cute water dragon, Wouter. Handsome Parker likes you. Yo-ho! The little water dragon raised its head in anger and despair. In fact, it could not feel Parker's presence at all. The great elf was too small for it. However, when it closed its eyes, its mind was filled with Parker's face, which made it hysterical. Therefore, it could only swallow potions to divert its attention. Yo-ho! It told List, who was watching from the side, that the potion supply must be doubled or it would rebel. List maintained his smile and ignored the little water dragon. Your Majesty, you are indeed a great human king who is favored by the gods. Is this a water dragon? What a wonderful creature. I can feel the powerful and oppressive supreme magic from it, the mermaid Marquis Brubushi said after rushing over. After all, dragons represent the pinnacle of power. From now on, little water dragon Wouter will use Mermaid City as his dragon nest. Brubushi, I'll leave the design of the dragon nest to you. Rest assured, Your Majesty. It is the fortune of all mermaids to be able to invite a dragon to live in Mermaid City. When feeding little water dragon Wouter, you have to control the clowns. Wouter is different from Marta the mountain copper dragon. It's an evil dragon with a bad temper. I'll control the clowns. Even if they are eaten by Wouter, it's not a big deal. With the source of energy potion, these clowns are producing little fish clowns every day. Its fertility is so strong that it seems to have returned to the sea before it was polluted by the cursed dragon. At that time, it was said that a large number of clowns were organized to fight each other every year to control the number of clowns. Clowns belong to an intelligent race, but in the eyes of the mermaids, these clowns were a group of lowly slaves that could reproduce. They did not have any dignity that an intelligent race should have. In fact, it was the same for the Nagas. In the eyes of the mermaids, the Nagas were an inferior race. Mermaids were only friendly to humans. They believed that the appearance of humans represented a higher civilization. Judging people by their appearance had always been the hobby of highly intelligent races. At this moment, when he saw the small water dragon, Bushi's eyes were also dazzled, and he couldn't wait to pounce over and touch it. This made Walter roar again and again. He really wanted to eat this mermaid, thinking that she was a great tonic. He left the little water dragon behind. List also handed over the exploration of the stronghold night to Achi. He did not have any clues at the moment, so he could only hope that Achi could make some discoveries. Subsequently, he rode on the invisible dragon Bard and directly tore through the material boundary. He came to the wilderness south of the solid land, which was the original habitat of the aluminum dragon. There was a brass mine here that could not be mined for the time being. Of course, he was not here to mine, nor was he here to join the migration team. Instead, he was going to set off for the fertile land and try to find Nimia the Great Lion. As for the light dragon that was scheduled, he had no plans to ride it for the time being. An adult light dragon was not easy to deal with, and the Grand Duchy of Maple Leaf was located between the Eagle Kingdom and the Iron and Steel Ridge Kingdom. It was easy to be exposed if he went to snatch the light dragon. It was not a good idea to move without being prepared. The light dragon was there and no one was fighting for it. He could ride it at any time. He ordered the light dragon to guard against assassinations. However, Great Emperor Jupiter knew that if the assassination failed, he would not let it go, according to what Laird Truth said. He would definitely get back at him. However, the King of Shadows was already dead. The magic shooter defected to the Fire Kingdom, and the broken crystal blade that he brought with him became List's sword. The mirror-like equipment that could see through supreme magic naturally fell into List's hands. The mirror was called the Magic Weaving Compass. It could weave the tracks of the surrounding supreme magic onto the compass. It was a very powerful detection artifact, especially effective against dragons. The other equipment that could seal space, the imprisonment light magic staff, had been destroyed. It could be said that Great Emperor Jupiter originally sent people to assassinate List with absolute confidence. Now he had suffered a double loss and even lost his underwear. He would definitely not send people to assassinate List in a short period of time. It was not easy to gather such a luxurious assassination lineup. In short, List was very safe during this period of time. He was invincible in the northeast corner of the legendary continent. As long as he kept a low profile, no one could hurt him. The fertile land still has to fly for more than 1,000 kilometers to the south. I hope Nimia the Great Lion is not hiding in the mud and sleeping during this period, otherwise it will not be easy to find it. However, it turned out to be a prophecy. The power of fate did not choose to favor him these few days. After searching for 3 days and 3 nights in the fertile land, he did not find any signs of supreme magic. There were also no signs of high magic. If Nimia the Great Lion did not leave the fertile land, then it must be sleeping in the mud. High-level dragons and creatures like World of Warcraft did not come out to hunt every day. Sometimes it was common for them to sleep for 10 days or half a month. However, List did not have time to waste here. After searching for 3 days and not finding anything, he directly tore open the material boundary and traveled back to the territory. As soon as he returned to the territory, there was good news. When Achi was preparing to start her research on the stronghold, she unexpectedly developed another special magical result, a magical contract designed according to the awe of the phoenix. This kind of contract was originally proposed by List. He hoped to build a bridge between the night and the World of Warcraft mount. Achi organized a group of great magicians to research this direction. At first, she did not have any expectations, but she unexpectedly received a reward. Brother, this kind of contract has been verified by the night. It can indeed establish a spiritual connection between the night and World of Warcraft. Their souls can be connected through a special frequency. Although the close spiritual connection is a little vague, the night and World of Warcraft can influence each other. Similar to the knight and the elf? It's somewhat similar, but the power of the contract is a little weaker because it is not mandatory. The World of Warcraft must be familiar with the knight before the contract can be established. If the World of Warcraft resists, the contract will be broken. In addition, magicians can also communicate with the World of Warcraft through the contract. Even magicians can do it? Then is it applicable to all World of Warcraft? It must be a World of Warcraft with a certain level of intelligence. If it is an insect-type World of Warcraft with no intelligence, it will be very difficult to form a contract. The knight and insect-type World of Warcraft can't get used to each other. No matter how well you treat insect-type World of Warcraft, you won't be able to exchange feelings for insect-type World of Warcraft, so you won't be able to form a contract. although it was not applicable to all World of Warcraft. List rubbed his chin and gave full affirmation to this research result. It will have a very wide range of applications. In that case, let's call this contract Beast Taming Contract. With this contract, it won't be difficult for the knight to tame World of Warcraft as his mount. It was very fitting and elegant. Chapter 1037. In the blink of an eye, it was already September. D. Maria Rainflower Stone arrived at the Soul Fortress through the Heart Reed teleportation formation. The Soul Island, where the Soul Fortress was located, had become a bustling port. A large number of ships were docked there and countless serfs were loading and unloading goods. The products of Blazing Island were sent to Iron and Steel Ridge Eagle Country and other countries, and foreign resources were also gathered at Blazing Island. However, there were strict quarantine standards for goods going in and out to prevent rats and other spies from sneaking in. What a great miracle, no matter how many times I transmigrate. D. Maria looked at the pitch-black magic door behind him and sighed silently. At the thought of leaving Blazing Island for this mission, he felt a little conflicted. As the former Marquis of Wildwave, he was born in the Kingdom of Eagle and had once chatted merrily with the Eagle King, Adonis Moonlight Silver. Now that he had been captured, he had sought refuge with the Fire Kingdom and was appointed as the vice-chairman of the Development Committee. This meant that he had control over the entire kingdom. This feeling was far better than in the past. But now, he was going to Sapphire Duchy in the name of the Fire Kingdom's envoy to discuss with Sapphire Duke Anthony Sapphire about this year's development order. According to last year's rules, the Sapphire Dragon would take the lead and invade the Eagle Kingdom to plunder its population. Currently, the demoted Sapphire Duchy was still a vassal state of the Steel and Iron Ridge Kingdom. With such a title, the expansion order was just like in previous years. Moreover, there was a good excuse to dispatch the Sapphire Dragon. When the Eagle Kingdom launched a dragon-slaying war against the Sapphire Dragon, could it be that the Sapphire Duchy was not allowed to retaliate? However, anyone with a discerning eye would know that the Fire Kingdom was behind this development order. This was List's revenge. King Adonis, I can only say my apologies. The Wuxia Stone family could not obtain the protection of the Eagle Kingdom. For the sake of the family's interests, we could only choose to lean towards the Fire Kingdom. His Majesty List has great talent and bold vision, and his strength is shocking. In the future, the Wuxia Stone family will only become stronger. Putting aside the little bit of guilt in his heart, D. Maria had already adjusted his state of mind when he took the boat to Blue Dragon Island. Right now, he was a knight of the Fire Kingdom. He only served his family, only served the Fire Kingdom. Florence Windchasing Arrow stood in front of the magic gate of Xiongyu Teleportation Magic Circle, waiting with the crowd. Today, the migrating knight from the Grey Iron Duchy had finally trudged over from the endless wilderness and was resting in Realgar City. Piero Grey Iron and the other nobles would cross the teleportation circle today and arrive at Jadestone City. They would officially join the Fire Kingdom and become the followers of List, the Fire King. The welcoming party was led by Lee William Tulip. This middle-aged noble, who currently only held the title of Marquis, was one of the few top-notch nobles in the Fire Kingdom. He was the father of the king. He had already become a domain knight, an existence second only to the Dragon Knight. There were those who envied Lee William, those who envied him, and those who disdained him. Many people believed that Lee William had been basking in the glory of his son. Otherwise he would only have been a sword saint and an earl. How could he have had such a glorious moment? However, Lee William did not care about these jealous words at all. If he was so capable, he should have had a powerful son too. Florence glanced at Lee William. He was not jealous or envious. He was about to become a perfect Sky Knight, and he also had the Domain Knight training manual. The Grey Iron Duchy and the Eagle royal family were close friends, so they naturally had the Domain Knight training manual. Duke Piero's talent was limited and he could not cultivate, but Florence was full of confidence. In the future he was destined to become a Domain Knight. With the rise of the Fire Kingdom, he would be conferred the title of Duke if he made great achievements. The rise of a brand new kingdom will inevitably have to compete with the original three kingdoms for resources. I have plenty of opportunities to make contributions. Even if I can't grasp the opportunity to make contributions, I can still inherit my father's title and become a duke. But I hope to become a duke myself. He did not have much work to do on Blazing Island, so he had many opportunities to travel around. What he heard the most here was not the gossip among the nobles, but the discussion of military achievements and the worship of List. At the age of 16 he was still a trainee knight. People called him a loser and he was assigned to the most remote town in the country. However, at the age of 18, List had already become a Sky Knight and a Dragon Knight not long after. Later, he rose to power in the Battle of Dragon Slaying on the Sea. Then, in the Second Battle of Dragon Slaying, as a Holy Dragon Knight, he fought against 5 dragons and 2 Dragon Knights of the Eagle Kingdom alone. He killed a Dragon Knight and took away the Grey Iron Dragon. It shocked the 3 kingdoms. Now, List was only 21 years old, but he had 7 dragons, including the Invisible Dragon, the Fire Dragon, the Light Green Gem Dragon, the Grey Iron Dragon, the Orichalcum Dragon, the Aluminum Dragon, and the Bone Dragon. He did not know that List had also obtained a new Water Dragon, so he had 8 dragons. In this era, the most legendary and dazzling one was List. Everyone knew that his rise was unstoppable. Therefore, being able to follow behind List meant that they were about to make a fortune, and that great nobles would spring up one after another like bamboo shoots after the rain. My starting point is far higher than His Majesty List. Although I am not blessed by the glory of the night like the Son of Glory, I also have to rely on my own efforts to create a family, instead of inheriting my father's title. Just as he was in a trance. Suddenly he heard someone shouting, "It's coming!" Florence suddenly came back to his senses and looked up at the dark magic door. The deep blue vortex emerged, and then a loud dragon roar came from it. In the next moment, a tall silver-white figure rushed out of the magic door. Under the illumination of the sun, it shone with silver light. It was the aluminum dragon that he had lost in the Battle of Seoul. It had now become one of List's mounts, and had escorted the night migration team all the way to Flame Island. After rushing out of the Xiongyu teleportation array, the aluminum dragon left without looking back, flying into the sky and disappearing. It heard List's call and went to the dragon nest that List was arranging for it. The appearance of the aluminum dragon caused a commotion among the Night Knights, but it soon calmed down. The knight welcoming the team had seen many dragons. There were quite a lot of dragons on Flame Island, especially the Invisible Dragon. It appeared very frequently, and its beautiful posture had already convinced everyone. Therefore, everyone was immune to the new aluminum dragon. A moment later, another vortex appeared in the teleportation array, and a team of knights shuttled out. Seeing the familiar flag behind the knight, Florence wanted to go forward to greet them, but he stopped and followed the other knight. He did not want others to know about his relationship with Duke Piero. After all, he had decided to rely on his own efforts to create a new family. His shyness did not affect the whole welcoming ceremony. Lee William had already come forward on his black blood horse, and performed the knight greeting with Duke Piero. Duke Piero, fellow knight, welcome to Flame Island. On behalf of the King of List, I extend a heartfelt welcome to you. His Majesty has been looking forward to your arrival, and the Flame Kingdom now needs you to join us to create a new era of the kingdom. Chapter 1038. Thank you, Marquis Lee William, for your grand welcome and His Majesty List's concern. Piero Greyiron has yearned for the Fire Kingdom for a long time, and now he has finally set foot on the land of Fire Island. In the days to come, I will dedicate all my and the Greyiron family's loyalty to this land. Now, please let me introduce you to the gentlemen behind me. They were all brave knights of the Greyiron Duchy in the past, loyal and upright. Marquis Mendez, Marquis Greyiron, a perfect Sky Knight. Duke Piero and Marquis Lee William introduced the nobles in front of them to each other. Under the scorching September sun, the nobles chatted enthusiastically. Wild Bumblebee was extremely envious. He also hoped to become a member of a great noble family, but he was only a small follower at the moment. However, this was not important. After coming to the Fire Kingdom, all the nobles would no longer follow Piero Greyiron. They would all follow List Fire. I'm not strong enough yet, but I'm young enough. I've been taking royal jelly produced by my family every day, and it's comparable to magic potions. I can already vaguely feel that I'm about to break through the limits of an Earth Knight. My future is in the sky, and the Bumblebee family will also become a true great noble family. There were actually many nobles like Wild. Every knight who migrated thousands of miles to the Fire Kingdom hoped to make a name for themselves here. List's legendary status was like a flag that attracted ambitious knight. When many countries were first established, this was how they attracted talents. The personal charisma of the monarch guided his followers to overcome all obstacles and cultivate a glorious career. This was because they were not prisoners but migrated knights. This was why this group of 1 duke, 4 marquises, 17 earls, 38 viscounts, and a large number of baron and lord knight migrated to the Fire Kingdom. They were quickly put in important positions. Other than the fact that their fiefs had to wait until after the country was established, Their treatment was no different from before. List did not immediately receive these people. He was busy building the dragon nest for the aluminum dragon. Aluminum dragons didn't have high requirements for their living environment, but they liked shiny silver things. They couldn't fake silver, they had to have the unique luster of metallic silver. Therefore, List built a huge silver-plated dragon nest for the aluminum dragon near the Fire Kingdom. Caverns carved out of the mountains, caverns that aluminum dragons like to live in. At the entrance of the cave there was a lake. Instead of water, it was filled with mercury. The large amount of mercury mined from the mercury mine in Dragon Valley City had yet to be put to use. In reality, most of the resources would be brought to the Flame Royal City to be stored. This was the private property of the Flame family. During the construction of Monarch City, a large number of warehouses would be built around the Killing Moon Sacred Mountain to store supplies. In the future, when the land surrounding the Fire Kingdom was developed, even the elves would move over. Apart from the Fire Kingdom and a few other major cities, the other cities would be given to the nobles of the Burning Legion. As the direct orders of chivalry of the Fire family, he would have to raise himself in his own fief. Many of the national systems that List designed were borrowed from the Sapphire Principality. The Sapphire clan created the Blue Blood Alliance and he created the Burning Legion. Of course, most countries were like this. The Knight system itself was a social system that was difficult to define in terms of the form of a country. The nature of a king was not much different from that of a great aristocrat. It was just that the king had a larger territory, more followers, more resources, a more sound management system, and more centralized family power. How about this place? For this silver cavern, I have melted tens of millions of silver coins to arrange such a large area. The aluminum dragon stood at the entrance of the dragon nest. It first looked down at the mercury lake at the entrance of the cave, then looked at the dragon nest and gave its opinion. It looked beautiful, but it did not have a full silver interior. It was only silver-plated, which did not match its taste. Be content. Do you know that I have melted all the silver coins I have plundered? Fortunately, the Fire Kingdom has not yet begun to be in theft and can be bartered. Otherwise, the lack of silver coins would directly lead to the collapse of the monetary system. In the future, I will buy more silver coins and recast the dragon nest for you. Roar. The aluminum dragon reluctantly agreed. At this time, List touched its scales and said, "Now that you have lived in a new dragon nest, you should have a new name. I have prepared it for you. Let's call you Connor." Connor, an ordinary name. The aluminum dragon had no interest in the name, so it reluctantly accepted it and did not ask what Connor represented. Even if it asked, List would not say because it was a memory from another world. There was a movie called Terminator, in which the main character was the human leader John Connor, who fought against the Terminator robot. The villain in the sequel, the T-1000, was an infiltration-type Terminator also known as a liquid robot. And it just so happened that when the aluminum dragon was fully mature, it could also be liquefied. It was not good to call it the aluminum dragon T-1000, so List simply called it Connor. Before the aluminum dragon could familiarize itself with its dragon nest, a loud dragon roar suddenly came. It was the bronze dragon Marta flying over. Its dragon nest was not far from the aluminum dragon's dragon nest. Roar. The aluminum dragon Connor felt the aura of the bronze dragon Marta, and suddenly its scales stood on end. It stood at the entrance of the dragon nest, staring fiercely at the sky. Facing the direction of the sun, the bronze dragon Marta, whose body was emitting golden light, came to the aluminum dragon's dragon nest in a domineering manner. Its body was strong, and its golden luster was dazzling. Connor's body was slender, and its scales were grayish-white without much luster. In comparison, the aluminum dragon suddenly looked like an ordinary beast, not as noble and gorgeous as the bronze dragon. Roar. The two dragons stared at each other, not giving way to each other, and both got into an attacking posture. Seeing this, List sighed. This was the disadvantage of having too many dragons. They would have a very strong competitive mentality. It would be better if it was a different knight riding a dragon, but the key was that they were all List's dragons. Neither of them liked their knight to establish a close relationship with other dragons. Marta, go back to your dragon nest. List was a very controlling person, and he did not like his dragons overstepping their boundaries. If you don't go back, your treatment will be downgraded. You're a smart dragon, you should know what choice is best for you. The bronze dragon squinted at List. It turned its head. It roared at the aluminum dragon, then flew up leisurely, returning to its dragon nest. In fact, it was only here to declare its position. As a powerful magic metal dragon, the Fire Kingdom was its territory. New brother, be smart. How restless. After driving away the bronze dragon Marta and appeasing the aluminum dragon Connor, List finally breathed a sigh of relief and prepared to head to Jade City to host a banquet for the newly arrived Piero and the others. Chapter 1039. At the banquet, the atmosphere was joyous and harmonious. List and Duke Piero sat together, surrounded by Lee William Tulip, Di Maria, Emily and other higher-ups of the Fire Kingdom. I promised my followers that I would establish a kingdom within 3 years. It's already the 2nd year. Sapphire calendar year 156 is about to pass, and at the beginning of year 158, the Fire Kingdom will be officially established. Therefore, you need to work on Blazing Island for the next year and a half. I understand, Your Majesty. Which city will the Greysteel family stay in? Piero asked. We'll build a new city in the middle of Blazing Island, on a piece of fertile land near the sea. The sea there is mostly shallow, and it's very suitable for the development of aquaculture. Your Majesty, you want to farm in the sea? Piero was confused. List smiled mysteriously. Duke Piero, it seems that you don't know much about the Fire Kingdom. The Fire Kingdom is blessed by the night's glory, and even the surrounding Shell Sea is blessed by the night's glory. I have 7 mermaids as my followers and a large number of ugly fish slaves. Mermaids? Piero was shocked. Seeing Piero's expression, Lee William, who was sipping his wine, felt inexplicably refreshed. This was probably the expression he had when he heard that List had become a Sky Knight, become a Dragon Rider, and become a magic shooter. But on second thought he suddenly became angry. He admired Piero's expression and felt very good. Then, did List also admire his expression at that time? Glancing at List, who was bragging to Piero about how mermaids followed him, Lee William shook his head inwardly, consoling himself that he was just overthinking things. After all, he was his son. How could he have the bad taste of watching his father make a fool of himself? After consoling himself, Lee William quickly adjusted his state of mind and began admiring Piero, as well as the other nobles at the banquet. Do mermaids really exist? They used to rule the sea and get along well with humans? They actually accepted Your Majesty's title and became marquises of the sea? This is unbelievable. I really want to go to the seaside and see the mermaids. There's actually a race called ugly fish, they're cheap labor. Your Majesty, you're the ruler of the sky, land and sea. This land is full of legends. Your Majesty, you're a legend destined to shock the entire legendary continent, and Her Highness Emily is also an incredible legend. The praises were endless. At this moment, a greater noble from the Grey Iron Duchy asked curiously, Emily has no family name? Family name. It was the symbol of civilization. Nobles all had their own surnames except for the Emperor of the Empire. Surnames were no longer worthy of the Emperor's glory. In many countries, even serfs had their own surnames such as the Sapphire Duchy. However, it was very unreasonable for nobles, especially great nobles, to not have a surname, which was why this great noble asked out of curiosity. Emily's face was still young and immature. After all, she was only 15 years old. However, her long experience had made her mature. She replied calmly, Emily is Your Majesty's spear and shield. I will follow Your Majesty for the rest of my life. It doesn't matter if I have a surname or not. The conversation should have ended at this point, but this great noble's brain was a little stubborn, and he actually asked, Your Highness, are you not planning to start a family? Why do I have to start a family? In Emily's eyes, the glory and inheritance of nobles are far inferior to the glory of His Majesty. Emily said seriously, being loyal to His Majesty is Emily's greatest wish, and I will fight for it for the rest of my life. In the future you will understand how lucky it is to follow His Majesty. Emily's words were a little mushy, making List feel a little embarrassed. However, he understood that Emily really thought so. The more he understood, the more embarrassed he felt. However, after peeling off this layer of embarrassment, it was extremely satisfying. This was the reason why he liked to cultivate young followers. On the surface he still had to keep a low profile. Emily is my most outstanding follower and also my most gratifying student. The Fire Kingdom started from nothing and many knights climbed up from the bottom. No matter if they are serfs or nobles, they all have a way to rise here and it can be seen everywhere. He raised his wine glass and raised it. Recently many people have been saying that it is my glory that has brought the Fire Kingdom to life. And I hope, no matter if it is my glory or the glory of a knight, it will be able to bless everyone standing on this land. Everyone raised their glasses, and Gort, who was in charge of adjusting the atmosphere, took the opportunity to shout, "To the glory of His Majesty! To the glory of His Majesty! To the glory of His Majesty!" Whether it was voluntary or not, everyone followed Gort's lead and started to shout this slogan. Liszt wanted to smile, and he was more and more satisfied with Gort. He drained the wine in his glass in one gulp, and then put down the glass, indicating for everyone to quiet down. He made a gesture that successful people and leaders like to do, pointing his index finger upwards and shaking it slightly. "It is fate that has guided us to gather here. Everyone, do not be anxious. Sapphire calendar year 158 is the first year of the fire calendar, and the Fire Kingdom is with you. Land, population, resources, elves, status, power, whatever you want, I can give it to you." After a pause, his tone became more and more sonorous. "And now, all of you, what you need to do is to offer me loyalty, courage, and integrity." It was Gort again. He was always able to stand up at the most appropriate moment. "Your Majesty, Gort Mast offers you all my loyalty, courage, and integrity." Thus, the nobles who were a beat slower also stood up, shouting to offer their loyalty, courage, and integrity. Emily, Piero di Maria, and the other great nobles did the same. Only when Lee William was about to stand up, Liszt pulled him back. "Father, you only need to be proud of your son." Lee William was greatly comforted. "Of course I am proud of you, Liszt Flame, my son. On the day you were born, the entire forest of Coral Island was calling your name. I proudly watched you grow up day by day, becoming the embodiment of justice." Liszt smiled and said, "I understand, Father. When I am crowned king, I will rule this country with wisdom and power, and I will also cautiously use my formidable power. I will inspire the hearts of the people and lead the night to true victory." Chapter 1040. The Big Dragon is Dead is not in good condition. Please wait a moment. After the content has been updated, please refresh the page to get the latest update. Chapter 1041. The father and son looked at each other and smiled. There was no need to say anything. This banquet was a joyous one for both the host and the guests. The next day, Liszt arranged for Duke Piero to be the third vice-chairman of the development committee. The rest of the matters were left to his father. In the past, he was reluctant to let go of power and liked to experience authority at work. However, after getting used to it for a while, he no longer wanted to be tied down by mundane tasks every day. Fortunately, he had a few blood relatives, especially his father, Lee William, who he could entrust to him. It was good to be a hands-off boss. With the hope of eternal life, Liszt's desire to start a family had faded. Even if he did not master the skills of the Dragon Lord, the Phoenix incarnation had given him a lifespan of at least a few hundred years. He had established a kingdom in a few years. It was unimaginable what kind of realm he would reach after a few hundred years. "I have to work harder now and help a chief figure out the Stronghold Knight's cultivation system. When I become a Stronghold Knight that surpasses the Dragon Knight realm, the entire legendary continent will be under my control. At least according to Laird Truth, there is no one stronger than the Dragon Knight in the Noble Frost Empire." The Noble Frost Empire did not have a Stronghold Knight. Obviously, the Unsetting Radiance Empire and the Blue Dragon Empire did not have a Stronghold Knight. Otherwise, the tripod would have been broken long ago. However, it was not easy to figure out the Stronghold Knight's cultivation system. Achi had been working in the Wizard Tower for a long time, but she still could not understand the nature of the stronghold. "Brother, it's difficult to explore the stronghold using ordinary methods. We can only rely on Bard's adult strength to spy on the Weave Dragon and find clues about the stronghold from it." Achi announced helplessly in mid-September that there was no progress in the research on the stronghold. Liszt comforted her. "Don't worry, Achi. Observing the Weave Dragon is the worst plan. If we alarm the Weave Dragon, it will be hard to imagine the consequences. We can only make a decision when we have no other choice. Why don't you put down your stronghold research and go out to enjoy the scenery?" Achi is not tired at all. "I ride Charlie to the beach every evening. Then I'll change my research job and find some inspiration." Yep. Achi has a lot of research at hand. Emerald Dragon Leg, Mystic Dragon Soul Fruit, Golden Apple Wood, Bloodline Fruit, Pitch Black Ring, Equivalence Alchemy. Achi has been wanting to research alchemy recently. I've already given Laird Truth the relevant data on equivalence alchemy. He's checking the exchange rates between all metals. the magic shooter who immersed himself in compiling the encyclopedia and summarized his knowledge into the research topics of Laird Truth's life. After contributing the Laird research project to Achi, his knowledge was acknowledged by Achi, and he was allowed to participate in some of the experiments. She handed over the data to Ryder, who would lead the magicians to research it himself. Right now, Achi was like the boss of a laboratory while people like Laird were the boss subordinates. Ordinary magicians were the research dogs, while the great magicians were the leaders of the research dogs. The hierarchy was clear and the division of labor was clear. Some people had to work while others had to work. In October, there was a rapid breakthrough in the research on alchemy. With reference to the ability of the pitch-black ring, under the supervision of Achi, a brand new alchemy magic array was set up in the laboratory and successfully refined a ton of iron into a pound of mithril. The ratio was about 2,350 to 1. An equivalent exchange of 2,350 to 1. If I set up a magic array to replace the effect of the pitch-black ring, and take into account the manpower of the magicians, the ratio might increase to 2,470 to 1. Laird calculated in his notebook and drew out a table of the equivalents. List raised his eyebrows. Even if it's worth 2,500 to 1, it's still a very profitable business. Now that the territory is no longer short of iron, it's completely possible to refine some of the iron into mithril. Mithril played an important role in knight equipment, especially in a predatory war like the Pioneering Order. The light mithril armor allowed a knight to come and go like the wind. Snatching and running had always been the most adept skill of knight at sea. Your Majesty, the equivalence ratio of iron to mithril is not the most cost-effective. The most cost-effective is copper to adamantine. After calculating the wear and tear, the equivalence ratio can reach 2,310 to 1. The smaller the ratio, the greater the amount of magic metal that could be refined from ordinary metals. This is also possible. The importance of adamantine is self-evident, and there is no shortage of bronze. We have to develop this alchemy. Liszt immediately decided to get both mithril and adamantine. As for orichalcum, there was no need for orichalcum. The orichalcum dragon Marta was lying in the Fire Kingdom and could produce orichalcum at any time. He then asked, what is the equivalence ratio of ordinary metals to gold and silver? Gold and silver were the common currencies in the legendary continent. If the equivalence ratio was good, gold and silver could be produced in large quantities. This way the Fire Kingdom would never lack money again. The equivalence ratio of iron to gold is 1,850 to 1. The equivalence ratio of iron to silver is 1,430 to 1. The equivalence ratio of copper to gold is 1,260 to 1. The equivalence ratio of copper to silver is 870 to 1. The equivalence ratio of silver is not much different from that of gold. However, gold is much more valuable than silver. It is not cost-effective to exchange iron and copper for silver. It is alright to exchange for gold, but the process of alchemy is complicated. It is more cost-effective to exchange iron and copper for magic metal. After a little calculation, Liszt figured out the profit. 1 gold coin was equivalent to 100 silver coins, which was equivalent to 10,000 copper coins. Calculating from the gold content and other aspects, the value of gold to copper was about 2,500. The effect of alchemy was 1260. The effect of alchemy was about to turn 1 gold coin into 2 gold coins. The effect was not as fast as doing business. It was obviously not cost-effective. The exchange ratio of silver was even more exaggerated. Not only would there be no profit, but there would also be a serious loss. In conclusion, it was still better to use iron, copper, and other metals to alchemy for magic metal to make a lot of money. It was no wonder that alchemy was the favorite topic of all mages. Almost all mages would choose to study alchemy after they had some achievements. With alchemy, they would no longer be short of money. They would have the money to conduct more experiments and explore more truths. Alchemy will be the top secret of the Fire Kingdom. Other than Achi, the technology of the alchemy magic circle can only be controlled by the 3 mages, Laird, Chris, and Kenley. If it is leaked, I will hold you responsible, Liszt announced solemnly after looking at the results of the alchemy. The alchemy magic circle was classified as an official technology and was prohibited from private use. This undoubtedly affected the enthusiasm of the 3 mages. So, in order to motivate the 3 of them to take charge of the alchemy magic circle, he announced again, the alchemy magic circle needs to be carried out immediately. No matter who takes charge of the alchemy magic circle, you will be able to get 10% of the net profit for your private magic experiments and research. With that said, Chris was fine. She rarely engaged in magic research and mainly focused on administration. Money was of no use to her. Laird and Kenley's eyes lit up. They were true believers of the truth. With money they could do whatever they wanted. There was no need to apply for research funds from the Guild of Magic. Your Majesty, please rest assured. As long as there is time, I will be happy to take charge of the Alchemy Magic Circle. You're tuning in to the Han Lee's Wuxia Chronicles YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.